Diamonds so pearls, and I don't wanna take you traveling the world, but I can love you. Yeah, I'm gonna love you. I'll give you all of what I've got. The fancy finds, baby, I have not. Just gonna love you. Yeah, I'm gonna love you. I'm gonna love you, baby. Cross my heart and hope to die.
Hello and a very warm welcome. Cross is here on GCN Racing. A big winter ahead of us. Again, we have a simultaneous broadcast here. You can watch both on GCN Racing on YouTube and Facebook. Welcome along. Thanks for your company. We are on round 2 of the Ethias Cross here today from Meulebeke, the Baron Cross as it's known. It's going to be a good day. This course has a little bit of everything. I've seen it described in the media as the Disneyland of cyclo-cross, of course, is a great description of this one. The Ethias Cross as a series, it was known as the Brico Cross in the past. There's no general classification, but we kicked off the season in Iclo, and this is what happened. There you have it, Mount Captains taking that one ahead of Inga van der Heijden. Anna Kay, great performance there in that one as well. If you want to get on board, lots of chat both on the chat forum on the YouTube channel and Facebook. I'll do my best to keep track of those. You can also get me on Twitter as well at MartyMacTV. I'll try and keep a track of the GCN Twitter as well if you just want to say hi. But don't panic as well. I'm not on my own. Today, we've got Helen Wyman with us, and she's here remotely as well. Hi, Helen. Welcome along. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Now, we've started the season, as we saw there in Iclo. A lot of riders have gone to the US, and now we're back. So we're kind of restarting the European cyclocross season in a way. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the riders went to America, but in the women's field particularly, you saw some of the key players weren't there. And this is the first race of the season for those riders. So it'll be really interesting to see how they can perform compared to those riders that have already got 5 or 6 races under their belt.
It's one of those points that it's so exciting. I love this point of the year. And if you're anything like me, we live for the winter, us cyclocross fans. But for a lot of riders, in terms of where they would have been in their preparation from where we saw them coming out of the back end of last season, and we've seen, in both elite women's cross and the men's cross, a lot of riders now, they go away, they race on the road, they're racing their mountain bikes. And I think this year has been a real, we're going to see a lot of riders, I think, coming back into cyclocross just from the success that those riders, Marianne Vos looking at the rider she was this season, Mathieu van der Poel as well, that we're going to see a lot of people coming back.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that at the minute, the cross riders are the people that will be the ones to watch. I mean, you look at the cross-specific riders like Elizabeth, who actually won the first 2 World Cups in America, and he genuinely has gone from a young man to an adult in over this summer, and you can see physically he looks like a grown man now. And so it's really exciting to see how those riders progress. And riders like Inga van der Heijden and Anna Kay have absolutely stepped up, like we saw in Iclo. and Inga is one of the fastest riders on that course. In any kind of fast conditions, it's almost impossible to beat her in a straight line. You have to be better tactically. So I think it would be great to see how those riders compare to the riders that haven't raced so far this season.
And in terms of, you talk about Anna Kay there, and I know at the back end of last season, you raced the back end of your career with Experza last winter, but I saw you were out on a lot of training camps. What have they done technically to prepare for this season? Because we saw as well last winter, we saw an awful lot of especially the junior riders that were maybe sort of back in the sort of just around the top 10 mark and just outside the top 10. We were starting to see a lot more riders bunny hopping those barriers. We saw Jolanda Neff coming in and taking the GP Sven Nys right way back in January. Are a lot of riders as well gone away and worked a lot more technically on those sort of things?
I think so. I know, working with the Experza team personally, that those riders have worked really hard this summer. And we've had one training camp per month, and they've come down to France, and I've made sure I've done efforts with them, only one of each, but I've done an effort with them to make sure that they're doing it in the right way. And we've worked on the cross skills, but the girls on that team, their skills are really good anyway. When we were in Wisconsin at the Trek Cup, we actually made the girls from the team ride the barriers, and both Manon and Alicia did it. And because they did it, some of the other riders watching said, well, I should really give it a go. So Magali Rochette also did it, and another American rider. And so when the next day it was really muddy, and unfortunately, anyone couldn't ride the barriers. But when you see that there's Jolanda Neff was doing it. There's 5 riders that will be in the top 10 of that race, and they were all jumping the barriers. So for the women, I think it's a skill which a lot have spent this summer working on, just because they know that it's a skill that other women are capable of.
Now, Helen and Jeremy Powers are going to be with me over the course of this winter. She's not racing today, Jolanda Neff, but let's go back a little bit to that World Cup, and Jeremy Powers caught up with Jolanda Neff, so we can hear from her now.
So we're here with Jolanda Neff, the winner today at the Trek CXC race, the Category 2 before the World Cup. This is a hot way to kick off your first race of the season.
Oh yeah, it was very hot and humid. But yeah, I just come from a whole summer of mountain bike racing where we had similar conditions, very hot a lot of times. So yeah, I'm kind of still used to it. I'm sure that helped a lot today.
Yeah. How does it feel to win here at Trek HQ in front of all, your title sponsor and all the people here that make it possible for you year round?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It doesn't get much better. We had so many people from Trek here today watching. Everyone just came off work. They're just working 100 meters from here. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. We race all year around the globe, and they don't get to go to many races since they're working. But that's incredible to race in front of them. It's such a pleasure, and I feel like it's so much. Yeah, it's so empowering.
Yeah, and you're excited for on Sunday, the first World Cup that you're going to do this year.
Yeah, it will be, and we're racing pretty much the same track, a couple more features. So I guess it's good for me because the technical features are really what's helping me here. I'm already almost in off-season mode, so yeah. I'll do what I can on Sunday, and I'll just have fun on this track. It's a really fun track to ride.
I love it. Congratulations on your win today, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great to hear from Jolanda Neff there. Jeremy Powers out and about. Helen, you were over there. A lot of the riders we're going to see today took the trip over, and we saw something that we didn't see an awful lot of in Europe last winter. Was some pretty brutal mud.
It was really epic. It's the first race so far this season that I thought, I'd quite like to do that. It really was crazy. It started raining at 12 o'clock on Saturday, and it didn't stop. And so when you hit the races on Sunday, having had some of the earlier races on as well, the track was really churned up. And yeah, there was a section, I think it's called Trek Hill or something, and where it goes down and you zigzag down, and I was watching the amateur guys and they were literally sliding on their bums down this hill and so that really makes the course difficult for the elite riders. But yeah, but by the time it came to the race, it was just really tough going, and you saw the older, stronger riders come through again, unlike the first World Cup where you saw the really young riders doing well.
Now, if you're with us as a viewer for the first time on here on GCN Racing, if you weren't with us for the cyclocross last winter, welcome. The way the format for today and the way the racing goes, we'll bring you the elite women's race quite soon. As we've got pictures, we'll go picture in picture and we'll show you those. In half time as well, we'll come back. We'll wrap up the women's race. We've got a few little bits and pieces, some videos that Jeremy Powers has been out, and we'll try and bring you as much new content as we can in the halftime show. Then we'll preview the men. We have the elite men live, and then Helen and I will be back afterwards just to sum everything up. But that's the format. And as Helen mentioned there, the amateur riders having a little slip slide around. We want to hear from you as well, so you can get via the video uploader. So what I want to do over the course of this winter, I want your epic rides, your cyclocross, little short video clips. Can be a little bit of an epic fail, a little bit of a slide. Could be you bunny hopping the barriers, developing those skills. We want to hear from you. You can get them via the video uploader on the GCN website. So check that out. We'll try and put a little epic montage together for that. But today, Helen, back racing. Who do you think we could be really looking at today? The first round Mount Captains was looking absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, she was really good, and she was good in America as well. A couple of solid results. For me, it will be really interesting to see how Anne-Marie Worst and Arzufi come back in alongside Sana Kant as well. This is the first race of the season for her. I hope that the girls, having done the races early on, will have a little bit more speed in their legs and a little bit more race practice. But equally, it really could be one of these girls that start their season this year.
Yeah, Anne-Marie Worst, you can see in the European Champions jersey. They're just warming up the cameras sometimes when you see that, but we're down at the start as well. And in terms of British fans as well, I know we've got a lot of those. Beth Crumpton here for Tartaletto Easter Eggs, the likes of Anna Kay as well for Experza. Both riders as well that kind of took a big step up last year. It was quite exciting to see their progress.
It was really exciting to see their progress. And I know this year that in the summer, Beth Crumpton finished her exams at the university. And so for her, I think it's been a bit of a summer more relaxing than just de-stressing, I think. Whereas for Anna, it's been very much focused on making herself even better than she is now. So it will be really interesting to see how Beth is. There's also another British girl, Connie Hayes, I think, on the start list. And so it's good that the girls are getting out there and making the trip out to do some racing in Europe.
We see that 13 to 14 degrees Celsius in terms of temperatures. It's quite a nice sort of autumnal temperature, isn't it, for the start of your cross season?
It's not too hot, not too cold, just kind of, it's a short sleeve skin suit, but still you're probably going to sweat quite a lot. But I mean, cross makes your heart rate get really, really high, and so your body temperature is really high as well. But I don't think it's raining, so it's probably going to be maybe a little bit slick because they have had rain this week, but probably not mud tyres. But I don't know yet.
Now it's a 2.7 kilometre course as Mount Captains. They pretty much here in Meulebeke, they pretty much cram just about everything that you can into a cross course here.
It's absolutely mental when you try and ride the race. I had a head injury in 2016. And so when I then went on it like affects your brain a little bit when lots of things happen together and really fast. And this course is everything happening all the time. They've got 2 bridges that you ride over consecutively, which is something I've never experienced before. They've got the BMX track style thing. They've got sand pits. They've got stairs. They've got a running track. There's everything happening at once in this race.
Losel's here, just alongside Alice Arzufi. There's Anne-Marie Worst looking resplendent in her European Champions jersey, one that you kept warm for a couple of years there, Helen. That's a special jersey, isn't it? The Pan Am jersey, the Pan American jersey, all these sort of jerseys really, really special just to pull on every race.
Yeah, it always feels incredibly special. I had the old version, so mine was blue with just the yellow stars on. And the first year that I didn't wear it, then they changed the jersey. But yeah, it's so exciting when you put on a national champs or a European champs or I guess a world jersey. It just makes you, when you're pinning your number on, it just gives you a little smile, really.
World champion Sana Kant there. Helen as well. Tyre choice today. We're seeing the cameras just panning down on there.
Yeah, it looks like they're onto the Griffo style or Typhoon for the Dugast. So yeah, I would say that it's probably not wet at all. It's probably just got some little tacky sections. And yeah, so everyone's using an intermediate tread.
Ellen Van Looy just alongside Celine Del Carmen Alvarado. There's the Exposer team in the background and the Exposer Footlogics team. Everyone just watching the lights, that anticipation as well. So for riders, this is their first race of the season. Not quite, sometimes just never quite sure how it's going to pan out. We'll get you through all of the riders that we can as they get going. So Sana Kant, Jolien Verschuren is here as well. Pauline Dehay, Meg de Bruyne, Laura Verdonschot. Anticipation, Del Carmen Alvarado, this front row start, super important here for the riders. Ellen Van Looy from Telenet Valois Lions. Away we go. We are off and racing here in Meulebeke. And Ellen Van Looy getting a great start here. Sana Kant, Celine Del Carmen Alvarado, Inge van der Heijden moving up. Annemarie Horst is also there as well. Tess Van Looy wearing 40. And the start, super important here. And that's the finish line. So they're just lining up now and trying to get that, the whole shot, as we call it, Helen. So important to try and get onto the first tight twists and turns as close to the front, especially with this first run up right here.
It's so important in these races, particularly when there's so many things going on the course that other people can slow you down on. So those girls on the front row have a massive advantage on a course like this.
So you can just see how close everyone coming together here on the run-up. Real Vermeer just going through your picture, and at the back you can see everyone's... Sana Kant is pulling away at the front as there's riders still trying to get over that first set of stairs. But, your world champion, Sana Kant, leading out. Ellen Van Looy, Celine Alvarado. It's right into the line here. Mount Captains just moving up. Low Cells just trying to get as good a start as she can. So last year it was Sana Kant that took it from Ellen Van Looy. Low Cells, Celine Alvarado. Laura Verdonschot was up here as well. Ellie Anderson, Joyce van der Beeken, Lizzie Whitlock's Manon Bakker and Lindy van Anrooy. That was the top 10 last year. I would say sometimes, Helen, when you come back to a course, you know a course suits you. But Sana Kant, the world champion, there isn't really a course that doesn't suit Sana a lot of the time.
No, she is very good, and she's very tactically good. So she'll sit on a group, she'll put her first lap in like this, and then she'll sit on a group, she'll assess what's going on, she'll see where she's better than other riders, she'll see where she's not as good, and she'll use that to her advantage. So yeah, and it's good to see her come straight back in at the front. The same with Alvarado and Worst.
So just you can see through this the rhythm section, the whoops you can see here are moving up. There's Beth Crumpton just going through your picture. Alice Arzoufi probably a little bit further back, Alice Arzoufi at the moment than she would potentially want to be, Alice Arzoufi. But a rider sometimes... she doesn't get that great start. She just gradually picks her way through. All rider down here. Femke van Vonderschot there just goes down on the rhythm section. Difficult to try and pass anyone through that section.
It's really difficult because you can't actually pedal. You have to use your momentum. And if you try to pedal, like I think she did there, at the wrong point, it kicks you and then it just kicks you off of the line. And yeah, and then you hit the next bit at the wrong angle.
Onto the sand, Sana Kant leading through here. I'll just take a couple of comments from the forum. Anders Stenhouse just commenting there's no background noise, which is strange. Just to explain that, because of the Ethias broadcast, they don't have international sound. So there's no ambient sound, so we apologise for that. So they don't have what we call in TV an international sound, which is your ambient sound around the race. So my apologies for that. Anders, thanks for your comment. Aidan Collins again, hopefully just saying in there. Daniela Arzoufi just saying Forza Alice. So Daniela, let us know what relation that you are to Alice Arzufi. I love that when we get here on GCN Racing, that family checking in. We had Chloe Hosking's mum and dad on the Colorado Club, one of the races that we were broadcasting. It was great to have them on board as well. Stuart Davis, Brian Keller, thanks for saying hi, and Peter Mueller as well. Okay, and I'm being told that we do have our international sound now, so just as I've gone through and explained that, so we've now got your international sound. Hopefully now you can get a little bit more of the atmosphere that's going on there. Nicola Cochran as well, thanks for just checking in and saying hi, and there's a few comments as well over on our GCN Racing on YouTube as well about the sound, so you should now have that. Leading out, Sana Kant, Celine Alvarado, Ellen Van Looy, Alice, you got Amelie Hurst, Inge van der Heijden, Anna Kay just moving up here as well. So just getting through here, so getting the start now of a decent looking group here. Manon Bakker just starting to get onto the coattails of this group here at the front. So just getting a little slow-mo here into the sand. So Celine Del Carmen, Alvarado there, just having to dismount. Anna-Marie Hurst does the same. Sana Kant just gets quite far through the sand before she has to dismount. So Helen, technique-wise, coming out of that corner into the sandpit, it can just throw you in 1,000 different directions.
Yeah, it's really important when you go into sections of sand that you carry your speed, which Sana does really, really well. You hit the rut, because the rut is actually the fastest section, and you keep pedaling. But before you lose momentum, you have to actually get off your bike, which is one of the hardest things to judge.
Onto the planks, and Sana Kant leading through there. Again, a lot of comments as well. As you've got Helen Wyman here, my co-commentator, if you've got any questions for Helen, you can put them up onto the forum. If we get a lull, I'll do them through the race. If not, I'll try and get to some of them in halftime and also in our post-race wrap-up as well. So just over 6 minutes of racing. Manon Bakker just catching on to the back of this leading group here. Los Cells just getting onto the back as well. Alicia Frank as well for Experza Foot Logics. And Alicia as well, the rider that's just latching onto the back there, Helen, for riders that have gone off, done a few races. She came over and rode the first round of the National Trophy in Great Britain to great success.
Yes, she did. Yeah, she won there. She actually had a couple of seasons. So 2 seasons ago, she broke her ankle when she was warming up for Boom Super Prestige. And then last season, she got a really bad virus, and it took her until February this year to get rid of it. So this is her first season of actually not having any sickness and injuries. And she's doing really, really well. She, again, trained really hard this summer, and all the girls on the team did. And yeah, you can see that the results are coming in.
Joyce van der Beeken is also just on to the back of that group, former Belgian national champion. You can just see with the stripes on the cuffs of the jersey. Celine Alvarado here, you can see that European Champions bike. She's the European Under-23 champion. So unfortunately, the under-23s still not able to ride in their champions jerseys. The end of lap 1, so you can see here just 7 minutes and 25 seconds as they go through here, but a decent looking leading group. And that's a rider going through there that makes us all happy to see back, Jolien van Schuren.
Yeah, Jolien was unfortunately again had another injury. She had a brain tumor, and so she actually had to have surgery on that and took a whole season out. And now she's back again. And yeah, it was tough for her, definitely. And so it's really good to see her back doing something that she enjoys doing.
So you can see Anne-Marie Hurst just getting your interview there. You can see. So Karen Verheestraten as well, just getting onto the back there as well for Eco Creelan. And just, again, swapping through this leading group here. And, again, it's pretty much at the moment our who's who. Anna-Marie Hurst, Inge van der Heijden, Celine Alvarado, Ellen Van Looy, Anna Kay going through, Sana Kant, Manon Bakker, Alicia Frank just getting onto the back of that group. But a quick pace here at the moment.
It's super quick, and it's really good to see that these young riders are up there still after last season, backing up those results. And you can see how the girls are trying to attack. And on a course like this, where there's so many corners, it's so important to be in the front three, because you just get gapped when a rider in front of you isn't necessarily quite as quick as the first rider.
So out of there, Anne-Marie Hurst of the 777 team. A few questions as well over on Daniel Randall. We'll throw the questions at Helen. Just interested in what gear ratios most of the pro women are using here.
If you're using a double, they mostly use I used 42-36. You can use 44-36 or 34, but most it's hard to find. A 42 front chainring is hard to find, so they might end up using a 44, but most of them try to do 42-36.
There you have it. And another question as well. I think it was from Sean. It's just gone through. Tyre pressure in terms of, we saw the tyre choices. Tyre pressures for today, looking at the course, the surface.
So it's pretty hard out there. There's a lot of changes in surface. There's sand, there's wood chip, there's a little bit of mud on the banks before the BMX track. We have a theory. When you're using tubular tyres, which all of these women are, we would say your weight in pounds divide by 10 plus 5, and that would be the point at which you'd start at. And you would actually go down a few PSI or up a few PSI from there. So someone like Anna weighs around 42 kilos, which is about 100 pounds, which is nothing. So when we were racing in the mud in America in the Trek Cup, she actually raced on 13 PSI.
There you have it. 13 PSI. It's not an awful lot, is it? I think if I rode 13 PSI, I think my wheels would be square after about 10 meters.
Yeah, but on a course like this today, she would probably be running 15 or 16, maybe 17. So it's a lot higher because the ground is a lot harder.
Definitely. So Sana Kant, just going through your picture there. And Laura Verdonschot is the rider that's with Sana Kant at the moment. Manon Bakker getting herself well up there. Just the starts now of a little trio. Inge van der Heijden, Anne-Marie Hurst, Celine Alvarado, Anna Kay just trying to get back on with Van Looy and Bakker. And then you've got a bit of a gap now. Back to Sana Kant. Laura Verdonschot and Alicia Frank with Low Cells just behind her.
You saw there that actually Anna overtook Ellen Van Looy just before the sandpit, because Ellen Van Looy is a much bigger rider than Anna, so her skills are very different. And so Anna does lots of tiny little tight corners. And so by going around Ellen, she actually managed to get herself back on the group, whereas Ellen was going out the back. But yeah, they're all back together again now, and you've wasted a bit of energy, but equally you have to be at the front. And really, ideally, she should be sitting in second or third wheel now.
It's when you look through this, anyone that's tuning in for the first time, that's watching cross for the first time, it's one of those sports, isn't it, that's pretty relentless, because there's no real lull, is there? You kind of go to the red line, and you've got to be able to, as a rider, just kind of hold that red line for the duration of the race a lot of the time.
Yeah, and a lot of the races that a lot of the training we focus on is, oh no, you just saw there Sana Kant slipping on the edge of the course there. So this is the section I was talking about, where the little banks, the grass banks, that sometimes they get a little bit slick and you have to ride off the line. But yeah, in training we use a lot of sessions where you take yourself to a really high effort, and then we do sprints from that, because that's what cross racing is.
So Inge van der Heijden just leading out still through all these bridges. And again, if you're if you're a course designer, then you can see what you can put into 2.7 kilometers. If you're just tuning in, welcome aboard. This is the Meulebeke Ethias cyclo-cross race, the first of two broadcasts this weekend. We're back tomorrow in Pelt with the Reykjavik Cross. Martin McDonald and Helen Wyman are with you. Thanks for all your company. Our leading group is Manon Bakker just gets on. You see the world champion Sana Kant just leading this next group through. Laura Verdonschot and Alicia Frank are just behind her. So that little slip by Sana Kant just on that run up. There's your leading group. So that's the head of the race here on lap 2. Just a few shout outs. Jan S, when is the men's race? The elite men's race is a little bit later on. We go about 5 to 2 UK time. So it's about 1 o'clock at the moment here. Darrock and Murray, little question for Helen as well. Would you take riding through the sand over dismounting and running up the stairs? Which is tougher?
Oh, that's a really tough question. It depends on how long the sand section is. Riding long sand sections can be really tough because you have to put a lot of power out to get through them. But equally, running stairs, makes your heart rate really spike. So I would say if you took it to the stairs at Hoogerheide versus the sand section, I'd say the stairs at Hoogerheide are harder.
Excellent. Just a few shout outs. We've got the Bart Vellens just being interviewed as well. Before we come to a few questions, Bart as well, as we come to up towards the line, Bart Vellens, the 777 team, it's now focusing purely on the women.
Yeah, last year they had the 3 riders, and this year they actually got rid of the guys that were alongside the women's riders. There's 4 teams that are owned by the Rudolph brothers, so they tend to move their riders around in the teams depending on the sponsors and things like that. So, yeah. I mean, the girls obviously train a bit together and help each other technically and things, and that's really good to see.
It is indeed. Just a few hellos. Thanks for saying hi. Andrew Bell from Wakefield in Yorkshire, back onto the cyclo-cross after the road. Velocipede from Switzerland, thanks for checking in. Michael House and RAF Tornado as well from Toronto. Leo Whiten as well saying hi. Thanks for I know a lot of you loving being able to learn so much from Helen. Guillermo Gisani from the Philippines. Thanks all of you for saying hi as well. A lot of you looking forward to seeing Tom Pidcock in action this winter as well. Tom Pidcock I'm heading to Tom Pidcock's team launch on Tuesday as well. So hopefully we'll have some interviews to bring you on next weekend's broadcast as well. So our leading group, Anna Marie Hurst and Selena Alvarado, they've been very active on social media this week. These two as sort of putting forward just how excited they are about getting back into the cross season.
Yeah, it's always exciting your first race back because you've had the whole summer of training and you've worked really hard and then you don't know how you are compared to the other riders. So, yeah, it's nervous, but also a really exciting time.
There's got to be that sort of level of nervousness as a pro sometimes as well. I know, everything can sometimes seem super fine in training, and then you come into something like this, you got this beautiful rhythm section here. There must be that sort of element of, have I done everything right? Because it is a big gap between last season's cross and this season, even though you might have been off racing on your road bike or your mountain bike.
It really is, and you don't know what the riders around you have been doing. So you don't know if Sana's stepped it up in some way. You don't know if Laura or Maud or any of those riders have actually come through and found a new way to get extra from themselves. So you can only focus on what you can do, but equally, every year there's always a surprise at the front of the race.
With lots of established riders. Good to see Inge van der Heijden well up there as well. So if you weren't with us for Eeklo, you had Dan and Tom for that one. But round 1, if you weren't with us right at the beginning of our broadcast, it was Mount Captains, Inge van der Heijden, Anneke Loos-Sels, Shirin van Androoy, Laura Verdonschot, Ellen van Looy, Alicia Frank-Manon-Bakker and Sophie de Boer. That was your round 1. And there's a few comments as well over on the forum about Selena Alvarado's running speed. She has got really, really quick legs.
She has really quick legs, yeah. She is a very good runner, actually. As a cross racer, you have to work on your running, but equally, last year, I don't think we barely got off the bike the entire season, so sometimes it feels like it's a waste, but yeah, she is a good little runner. Sana's very good at running in the sand. Evie Richards is probably one of the fastest runners on the cross circuit.
How much running are you doing coming into the season and in between these races?
I used to run once a week, and that's pretty much what we do with our riders now, because there's only so many hours in a day that you can use to train, so you have to use them effectively. And we would only do a 15-minute run, but literally full gas, because in a cross race you don't jog anywhere. So It's pretty intense running, but it is only 15 minutes once a week.
So Worst, Alvarado, Van der Heyden, Kay, Bakker, Van Looy are there. And you got Verdonschot, Sarnekant that's going down through your groups here. So your leading group there from the front, Annemarie Worst. Still leading out here from Celine Alvarado, Inge van der Heyden, Anna Kay, Manon Bakker, Ellen Van Looy just onto the back here still for the Telenet team. And for, again, Helen, for Annemarie Worst, you can see battling to be at the front sometimes. And anyone that might be tuning in that's watching cross for the first time, and in terms of when you see riders on the road, they want to be in the slipstream and they want to be behind. But with cross, you see riders all the time battling sort of for that front position.
I always found it advantageous to be at the front because you could control the pace and you could control your line going into certain sections. And sometimes the lines, there is only one really good line, and if somebody messes up on that line in front of you, then you're pretty much screwed. So for me, I always liked leading from the front. Other riders like Sana are really, really good at holding the wheels and just popping out when it matters. And so if you're that kind of rider, then for you, I don't think it really matters whether you're first or second wheel.
And you just saw there, Celine Alvarado battled through to the front, then just turned up the pressure just a little bit more, and you can see through that section, everyone battling to try and get back on terms here. Verdonschot, Sarnekant, Mount Captains now. I was just about to say we hadn't seen so much of Mount Captains so far, but this chasing group behind, little flick of the elbow there, you can see just to try and get Sarnekant to come through. The world champion obliges, comes back through. That little mistake just a little bit earlier on, and again on the course here, just saw maybe Celine Alvarado had a little glance, saw Sarnekant was starting to come back, and that's the point where she thought, do you know what, I need to put the hammer down. I don't want Sarnekant to come back.
Yeah, I think Sana probably went off really fast because that's what she's used to doing, and maybe she needed to recover a little bit, and now she's recovered and she's going to come back as fast as she can. And there's no reason why a rider like her with Maud on her wheel can't actually come back to this front group. Well, she's almost there now.
You can see the world champion from Eco Kreelin in that rainbow jersey. Then there's a gap back. Just trying to get back on terms now. It's Kim van der Stene. You can see won the Koppenberg race last year. Alessar Zuffi is the rider. Alicia Frank, and then behind her, Mary Norbert Riberola is that next rider. So round onto the flat section again. The Corendon Circus rider Celine Alvarado, just keeping that pressure on. So you can see just over 20 minutes of racing so far. These 4 riders now at the head of the race. So lap 3 of 6. So we go through 21-23. So Worst, Van der Heyden and Kay. And then you go back to Mount Captain, Sarnekant, Laura Verdonschot, Manon Bakker and Ellen Van Looy, and Kim van der Stene just leading out this group now with Alessar Zuffi. And so just coming through there, Alicia Frank, Norbert Riberola, Loes Sells, and then right with her is Lindy van Anrooy onto the steps this time. And Lindy and Shirin van Anrooy, 2 really, really exciting riders as well that are coming through.
Yeah, Shirin has only just done the World Championships in Yorkshire, so I think she was second in the time trial as a junior.
Yeah.
But because obviously the juniors have to race with the elites currently, so yeah, she's just weekend back to this. That's pretty impressive.
So normally some riders would take a little bit of a break before they come back, but Celine Alvarado here is really pressing on with this move now. You can see onto the flat. She made that move, then she onto the flat. They came back to her, and then she just presses on again through the technical sections, and you just see the way this Meulebeke course here. It's a great start to the season, isn't it, as we said, because it's just got a bit of everything.
It's really interesting, and it's really interesting to see the different styles of riding. Celine really pushes on the pedals, whereas compared to Anna, who really spins the pedals. Celine's skills are really good. Anna's skills are incredible. I've not seen anyone ride like she does. And Anne-Marie's skills are really, really good as well. Of those 4 riders at the front, I'd say Inge's the fastest in a straight line, but isn't quite as fast on some of the really technical sections.
Through this bit as well, because we're seeing more and more little rhythm sections and little whoops and that kind of thing into courses, is getting out on a BMX track worthwhile for anyone that's watching and looking to up their skills a bit?
It can be, definitely. Learning how to pump at the right times on a pump track is actually a really useful skill in many things, but also in cyclocross. Here's one of the weirdest sections of the course that I found, where you have the pump track, you go down, come around, jump up some steps, run up some steps, have to jump back on your bike and do a pump track again. And it's kind of not really necessary to have the steps there. That's what makes this course so intense, is that everything just comes in quick succession immediately after everything else.
And a little question from Daniel, just asking you as well: do the steps become slippery towards the end, or are they to the organisers, are they textured so that it helps stop that?
Normally, they would have something on there. They'd have some kind of felt or grippy surface, so that when you do go into them, you don't tend to slide. Only if they're natural steps, but you don't really get very many wooden natural steps. The only thing that's really strange is sometimes they use the metal stuff, which looks a bit like cheese grater, and if you hit them with studs in your shoes, they quite often rip the studs off of your shoes.
Anna Kay takes the lead on that section there, so the British rider now on the front here for Expersa Footlogics. Anna Kay third on the opening round here of the Ethias Cross. Anna as well, you work with Anna Helen as well. She's a rider, former footballer, former soccer player for anyone watching internationally as well, former footballer. She looks like as well for someone like Anna. I remember back in the day when I first saw Sana Kant coming through and taking that first win. For someone like Anna, a young rider like Celine Alvarado that we saw when she took Brussels and those sort of races, it's just getting that first big international win under your belt before sometimes they start to snowball.
It can. Confidence is a massive thing in cyclocross, and it's really important that you can get result to show that the hard work you're putting in is paying off. And so for Anna, this is just a season to try and learn those things, to try and see where she is compared to the other riders, to see where her skills are, what she can improve. And she's only 20 years old, so she has a really long time in the sport, and she just needs to make sure that, she's improving every year, which so far she is.
So Anna Kay leading out here, Anna Marie Hurst, Celine Alvarado, Inge van der Heijden is there. Mount Captains moving up as well. So the Lauder Verdonschot, so the Palshausen Bingo team are all getting themselves up into this group. Sana Kant, Manon Bakker, Ellen Van Looy. That's the makeup now of this group. And at the front, it seems to be Anna Kay, Anna Marie Hurst, and Celine Alvarado that are just swapping through and off at the front at the moment. Just those little testing attacks. I think the rider in orange, Inge van der Heijden, at the moment, she just almost looks like she's letting those three play in front of her before she chooses when she's going to make a move.
Yeah, I think that genuinely is because there's so many technical little things going on that she's so fast in a straight line and so strong on these courses, but she's just not. It seems like a really critical thing to say, but because she's incredibly skillful, but the other riders have this tiny little edge when it comes to tight cornering and things like that.
So that group as well, Ellen Van Looy just fights onto the back of that group, and then you see that there's a bit of a gap to the next riders. So just go through, Malcolm Lewis just checking in. Thanks for saying hi as well. And Andy Huxtable, Mount Captains, through towards the front. Mount looking good. She took the first round in Eclo. She was one of those riders that headed over to the US as well. Didn't quite go her way over in the US for Mount Captains.
I think she was around 7th or 8th on the first weekend.
We're so used to her seeing her winning, so that's such a disservice to her, isn't it?
And then the second World Cup was really, really muddy, and she came in around 9th. She was 9th. So 2 top 10 results, so it's not a disaster. And this year, the world ranking, the world gridding for a World Cup is actually based on the World Cup overall. So that means that she's probably got herself a front row grid for the World Cup, whereas Sana Kant didn't go to America, and the highest place in theory that she can start is 25th in a World Cup.
Jolien Verschuren, you saw there, just coming to a halt through the sand, round towards the line. Mount Captains comes through the line. So lap 4 of 6, 28 minutes and 26. The Captains, Horst, Alvarado, Van der Heijden, K, Verdonschot, Kant, Bakker and Van Looy. So you just see Ellen Van Looy, 4-second gap between those riders. Jolien, is it, looking at the sand for anyone watching, is it harder through the sand when you're a smaller, lighter rider like Anna Kay or Jolien Verschuren?
I think when you don't have massive power, it's quite hard to ride any sand. I think for those riders, they are lighter, so they glide a bit better. But equally, yeah, it is pure power to get through straight sand sections, and also technique of carrying your speed in. Like I said, getting into that rut, carrying your speed in, and then trying to maintain momentum.
So you just saw the chasers just trying to get back on as well. Alicia Frank just going quite hot into those steps as well. You saw her almost just take a little stumble. But this leading group, the Kim van der Stene and Alicia Frank, chasing to try and get back on to this leading group. But with 2 laps to go, laps 4 of 6, it looks like the winner is going to come from this group. And just like you said a little bit earlier on, Helen, Sana Kant had that opening lap, that opening fast lap, led from the gun, had that little stumble, had to chase back, and now she's just sat back a little bit further down the group.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Sana hasn't moved up like Maud moved up when she went past some of those riders. I would have expected Sana Kant to be on her wheel, but so maybe she is just really is recovering and going to see what she can take from this result, from this course.
Maud as well, as we said, she's had a successful start to the season. And is there a massive difference between the way the Sana Kant just going a bit squirrely on the exit of the pump track there? Is there a massive difference between the way the courses ride and the courses flow here in Europe, and for those riders that went over to the US?
There is a massive difference between American courses and European courses. Absolutely. I spent the last 10 years of my career racing for within America for a good 4 to 6 weeks every year, and the courses, there's a lot more corners in American courses, there's a lot more power sections in European courses, but there's also a lot more features. So because in America it's a participation driven sport, they have to make the course capable for everybody to ride, whereas in Europe it's very much a spectator driven sport, so the money comes from people paying to watch the race, so then they can put in as many epic features as they want, because it's only really the pros that are going to ride that race. It's
looking at the course, about 10 to 15 euros still to get in to watch one of these big cross races?
Usually that's about right, yeah. The World Championships is a lot more expensive, but most races are 10 to 15 euros.
So our leading group, Mount Captains, can she follow up now that win in Eeklo, which was a great performance by her? Annemarie Horst, Celine Alvarado, Van der Heijden, Kay, Verdonschot and Kant, and then the 2 chasers about to... Sana Kant. Just see, again, Sana Kant, just those little errors creeping in. Sometimes, again, early in the season, maybe just trying to find that rhythm.
I think for Sana, yeah, this is her first race back. She's riding really fast. She's being pushed at the front of the race. And that's when you do start to make silly little mistakes. You're not so flowy as you might be if you're into your 3rd or 4th race. And so, yeah, we've seen 3 or 4 consecutive tiny little mistakes there, which she's corrected quick, but running up the stairs like that. But yeah, she is making them, whereas the other riders aren't.
And it's sometimes, I mean, we've seen races before that have been won and lost by stubbing your toe on the steps.
Yeah, definitely. There are plenty of times when it's so close at the finish, especially the last few seasons where the women have been so competitive at the front. And when you see that closer racing, I mean, on this course, there is actually quite a technical section immediately before the running track for the finish. So I'd imagine that everybody's going to try and get into that section first and then hope that nobody can come around them. But when there is an open finish, it's, really exciting to see sprints.
But Mount Captains, can she take this one? Just a few shout-outs as well. Katie Scott just checking in, just heading to the next round of the National Trophy in Milnthorpe. Yeah, good luck to all of you that are heading out to race this weekend. Alicia Frank, who is here racing today, she was in that first one. Oh, Alvarado goes down on that corner there. So a little mistake. That's handed a bit of a lead now to Hurst and Captains. So just a little slide out at the top of that one.
And that's totally split the group in half as well, which is why it's so important to be in those front 2 or 3 riders, because, yeah, not necessarily on the front, but when your second wheel, like Anne-Marie Worst is there, she can get around straight away. Whereas when your fourth wheel, like Anna was, then, yeah, you have to wait for the rider to get up and out of your way.
And Inge van der Heijden is the rider that's dragging that one back. There's the Don shot. Sana Kant, man on backer, just trying to run onto the back here. We've seen the world champion. Those tiny little errors. A good close-up shot there as well, Helen, just to show the way the tyres are riding in today.
Yeah, it is definitely an intermediate stay, as you can see, and that also relates to the sandpit section, because quite often with a mud tyre, it grips the edge of the side. The rut when you're riding in it, and it feels like Velcro. It's really tough to ride, but yeah, it's dry out there. So
luckily for those riders, that little slide by Alvarado has they found their way back. Anne-Marie Hurst now is the rider still putting the pressure on the front. Her and Mount Captains a lot. Sometimes as well, when that happens, you're kind of at the front relying on the rider behind just to roar that you've now got a decent gap.
Yeah, I think that they actually shut that gap down really quick. So we see Jolene there just, I think she's being 80%ed. So, yeah, you see the riders shut that gap really, really quick. And that's, like I say, Inge van der Heijden's one of the fastest riders right now. So for her, it was okay. But it does actually burn an extra match. And those riders, when they come to the finish line then, aren't going to be quite as fresh as the rider at the front that didn't have to do that.
So here we come round towards the line. So Anne-Marie Hurst leading through. So lap 6 of 6, here we go. So the bell lap this time. So that leading group, Van der Heijden now puts the hammer down on the front. So bell
it's really
lap.
It's really tough to decide who's going to be up there at the end of this race and who's going to win this race. Nobody seems to be that much stronger than anybody else in that front group right now.
Sana Kant taking the steps 2 at a time here at the moment. Out of that group, fastest sprinter, would you say if Sana Kant gets back on, she would be the fastest in a kick out of this group?
I would say in the past, yes, definitely Sana. I think that now, if Inge gets into it first, I think it would be really hard for anyone to come past. I mean, Laura's a good sprinter as well, and she's up there. It's a really tough one to call.
And looking at around this group, if you're right in there now, because we know you're still in there mentally, where can you, because it's so tight, it's so technical, where would you be looking to try and make your move?
It's really tough. You're going to have to make your move on the steps, maybe. Maybe you could make your move on one of the bridges, like Mao did between the 2 bridges. It really is tough places. There are a couple of sections. If you're technically better on a section, you might be able to use that to carry speed around a corner or through that section and come out. So you see there, Anne-Marie Worst has just cut up the inside of Inge van der Heijden. And so now she's ahead of the race. And so they're the kind of sections that you might use your skills over a rider that you know you have an advantage over to get a gap like she has now.
You just saw that tiny little rise there into the pump track, carried her speed through that rhythm section, and Alvarado recognises the danger. Got to get those feet clipped back in straight away and try and get back up to the European champion, who's now attacking this one to try and get a bit of a gap. And it's small, but we've seen Anne-Marie Hurst win from with smaller gaps than that.
She's really good at carrying her speed. Once she's got a little gap, that's it. It's really, really hard to close that gap back down on her because she just tries sprinting like she is out of every corner until the finish line. And that's something I've been working on with the riders on our team, that these girls really sprint for a long time out of the corners.
There's your chasers. So on to the this section now. Annemie Horst decides to off and run for as long as possible. So that European Champions jersey. We've got Van der Heijden runs back on. And Celine Alvarado, Mount Captains, manages to stay on the bike for nearly that whole sand section. Here comes Sana Kant, absolutely drilling it through the sand now. Horst just has a little glance back over the shoulder. On to the steps now. Alvarado makes it back on. It makes us 3 at the front again. Inga van der Heijden there for CCC Liv just latches on again.
It's getting really exciting, isn't it? I mean, I would have said Worst at that point, but then Celine's come back, and like I say, Inga's super fast. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough one to call.
There's these 2 riders, really 2 of the emerging talents that we've seen over the last few seasons. Celine Alvarado, Annemie Horst, so they're just Mount Captains just trying to get back on. Laura Verdonschot, are all just trying to get back in there as well. Anna Kay's been well up there for British supporters as well. But Van der Heijden gets back in. Mount Captains, you can see just trying to carry that speed, carry that rhythm through that section into the trees. Horst on the front. Do you think it's here advantage Alvarado and Van der Heijden?
No, I still think it's an advantage for Worst to be on the front, because you can take the speed out of that corner, you can accelerate, and those riders can't come past you. To be fair, Maud, when she comes past, it's like being motor paced, so if they let her to the front...
So we'll see what she's got in the sprint as well. The final lap here of the elite women's race. If you're just joining us, it's the Ethias cross here in Meulebeke. Your leading group here, Annemie Horst with Celine Alvarado and Inga van der Heijden. Mount Captains just trying to get onto the back of the group. The European champion and the European under-23 champion, who are both at the front of this one. Can Captains get back on that corner again? Bit of a nemesis for Alvarado, but she glances back. Has a look to see where Inga van der Heijden is. This is lining up beautifully for a sprint out of this group. So onto the bridge. Van der Heijden tries to find a way through. Double bridge section. Captains trying to carry the speed just to get back on. For Mout as well, though, if she manages to get back in there, she's going to be pretty gassed from the chase.
She is. If you manage to get back onto that group, you literally have to ride straight to the front and hope that you can stay there. I mean, she might... No, I thought she was going to overtake Inga then, but it's really exciting to see at the front. The first 3 riders are really, really young, with Inga van der Heijden being world champion for the under-23s as well.
Yeah, so and hence why we're always campaigning to try and let the under-23s wear their jerseys. Inga van der Heijden trying to find a way through. Annemie Horst just senses her coming up towards the front. Celine Alvarado is going to lead out here for Corendon Circus. She wants that front position onto the bridge. Captains gets onto the back. Just now will try to recover, ready for the sprint to the line. Alvarado leading out here over 40 minutes of racing so far into this little off-camber section. Captains, you can see on the back, Helen, just trying to recover enough to have a real crack at this sprint.
And this is the technical section that I said you need to be first off of onto the road, because there is literally only one line at that point. And now, if you can get the kick out of the corner, then that rider has to come around you in order to win that race. So this is going to be tough.
Alvarado leading out, then through this section. Alvarado on the front, kicks it. Annemie Horst is in the slipstream. She's going to try and come back, sweeping round to the right. It looks like it's going to be a race between these 2. Alvarado on the front. Can Horst find her way through? Alvarado and Horst. Alvarado's got it for Corendon Circus. What a great sprint. Celine Alvarado comes to the front, leads out the sprint. Van der Heijden and Captains both up there as well. Laura Verdonschot comes in, rolls across the line for Paul Sausen, bingo. Then comes Anna Kay. You called that one well, Helen.
Yeah. Yeah, the advantage of having raced these races, it always looks a lot longer than it is, but it really is a very short distance from that last technical section until the finish line.
It's just the way that just sweeps round to the right there. It just, as you get onto the road, it looks a little bit longer. Van Looy just comes through there as well with man on backer. But as you say, you can see just how short this little last section is. And you saw Annemarie Geust almost trying to decide, am I going to go up the inside? Am I going to go up the outside?
Yeah, she really tried as well. And I guess because it's a running track, it's flat. So it's not like you can use the camber to try and come around. But yeah, it is. And when you look on the television, it also looks like a lot shorter distance. But when you're going super fast, we're not sprinters as cross riders, but we do have a sprint. But equally, I think that a lot of cross tactical stuff is about being the first into the last section and then hoping that you can hold on.
So we've seen Azufi coming through, and then Van der Steener. Then they're coming through there. Van Androoy, Riberola, Lucels just comes through next. You see the former national champion, but what a start to the season. She looked, again, season on season, she's been such an exciting rider since she first appeared, hasn't she?
I think one of the best things about Celine is that she has progressed at a really comfortable rate. She hasn't just come in and won everything. She's come in, she's been successful on courses that suit her. She's been not quite as successful on other courses, and then every year she builds on what she's not so good at. And so for us to see the progression of that rider, it makes us learn the story about them, and it makes us grow to like them, really, I think, personally.
Definitely, really exciting rider. Again, as we said, we're not seeing a lot of these riders so far. For a lot of them, Annemarie Geust, Celine Amara, these are their sort of first races of the season. I think there's going to be a lot of them coming in today that are going to take a massive boost in confidence from this, that they've got everything right in their preparation.
I think so, definitely. And tomorrow is a very similar course to today, kind of a park cross. And so tomorrow you'll see them doing really well again. And then next weekend is the first Super Prestige, so Gieten. And that will be really interesting to see if the strength is there as well. It's not just because today it is a really technical course. And this is something you can't practice at home. You can't do a cross race unless you're in a cross race. And so for these riders to get that experience back from racing, whereas the others have had 3 or 4 races, then it's really good to see.
Yeah, and for Sana Kant, the world champion, we saw those little minute little errors just creeping in here and there, a little trip on the steps, a little trip on that on the bank. Like you said, you can't really practice that at home when someone else is dictating your pace, and you've almost just got to find that rhythm again in your dismounts and the technical sections, which is why we were saying a little bit earlier on, Meulebeke is such a great start because it's got a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and I think it's not really the technique that you forget. It's just when you get really, really tired, your brain stops functioning. Like, it sends oxygen to everywhere else that it needs it. And that's what makes cross really hard at those points. And, you're tired. You can't replicate. We used to work with a sports scientist, and he gave us power meters so he could see the files from the races. And it's something like 250 sprints in a medium level sprints per race. And it's almost impossible to replicate. You literally have to be in the race. You have to be someone else dictating it to you. And it has to be that intense 45 minutes.
Right. So as we said, this is the first time you're joining us, we said we're going out on YouTube for the first time this year. The format, we've got a little half time now. The men's race starts at about 5 to the hour. We're on about 30 minutes past. So we're gonna leave you for a bit. Jeremy Powers, as we said, is now with GCN full time. He's been out there. We thought we'd let you see his pre-season check and also how to build your own cyclo-cross course at home. So we're going to let you see those. Helen and I will be back before the men's race, and we will bring you that in its entirety. Enjoy Jeremy's films.
We're counting down the days, not weeks, days, until the cross season starts here in New England, where I'm from in the United States. It's a very exciting time. So I decided to put together some tips for your pre-season cyclocross checklist to make sure that when you hit the track, you're ready to go. Okay, so first up, we're gonna talk about equipment. Now, during the preseason, it's really important to go through all of your gear from last year to make sure that your equipment is on point. Why? Well, if you do all this training and you condition your body and you're feeling strong, you get out on the cross course, you go through that first bump, bars go down to the ground, chain's broken, shoe broke, not cool. So I'm gonna show you guys a couple of the things that I do every year to make sure that I'm ready to go. First up would be the cleats. They need to be replaced. If you have loose old cleats, you're gonna be jumping a barrier or jumping an obstacle in cyclocross, and you can pull out of your pedal and then you can have a recipe for disaster. On longer rides, loose cleats make a lot of wobble, knee issues, not good. So how do you get the cleats to be in the same place every time? Well, because I'm using the exact same tread and pattern that I have from shoe to shoe and year to year, you can see that this one measures up at 19 and this one also measures up at 19. It's a really simple way. It might be a millimeter here, a millimeter there. You got to make some small adjustments after you get out on your first ride. You go back and you check them out. But overall, I've used that technique with a lot of success. First things first, you got to get out in the garage and you got to get that bike. You got to see what's going on with it. If you're like a lot of my friends, your bike is probably still filthy from being hung up after the last race of the season in December or January. You finished the national championships, you were exhausted, you don't want anything to do with cyclocross, and you got straight into some pie around the holidays and your bike got hung up dirty. You gotta get that thing down, you gotta get it out in the light, and you gotta see what needs to be replaced. So we got the bike out in the light. It's obviously filthy. It needs a good cleaning. But if your bike's been sitting for a while, it's been in the garage, you haven't ridden it much, you really do need to check everything out. Things that I would just replace right off the bat automatically if you haven't ridden the bike in a while, because you're not gonna remember when you replace the chain or this or that. Chain's gotta go. It's probably got some rust, it got beat up, it got hung up dirty, it hasn't been properly cleaned. It's gotta go. Fresh chain. Next up, you wanna check out your tires. What the heck were you thinking hanging up your tubular tires, or really any tires, for 6 months without touching them? I don't know, but tubulars in particular, you want to make sure that you push on the sidewalls and that you check to see if any of the glue is cracking or you have any other issues or imperfections with them, because tubulars are like really need to be maintained and taken care of accordingly. If you've got regular tires like these ones, these Conti cyclocross tires, then yeah, you just need to check and make sure that there's no cuts or burrs or any sidewall abrasions, anything that would make your day really bad. So take a good look at that. If you're using a battery powered system like eTap or Shimano's electronic system, then you want to make sure that the batteries are all charged up and everything's firing perfectly. Then lastly, you want to look at the brakes. You probably want to check and make sure that your pads still have plenty of wear left on them. Otherwise, got to replace those. And then you want to make sure if you're running hydraulic that you've got a bleed, a fresh bleed. And if you're running cables, well, then you know the deal. You got to replace the cables. New cables and housing for sure for a bike that's been sitting hung up dirty since last December. So we're moving on from the bike and we're now going to talk about the body. What have you been doing in the off season? Hopefully some road riding or racing or some gravel stuff, but hopefully you're in shape enough to take on some runs. You got to get out there and you got to start doing some runs or get in the gym. For cyclocross, it's not all about just going up a hill and pedaling out on the roads. No, you need to have dexterity and agility and speed. And you don't want to get into your first cross race and then be sore for a month afterwards because you didn't do any prep. So I always recommend to do at least twice a week, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, which is like 1 or 2 miles, just to get your muscles ready so that when you do get out there on the course and you have to run with your bike, your body's prepared. So another big suggestion that I often make is to find a cyclocross specific coach, someone that has experience that can sort of guide you in the right ways. You don't want to be trying to go down one road to come back up to go down another one. No, you got to have a good coach that knows what they're doing to help you prepare. I always recommend too a good cyclocross camp, someone that's experienced, that knows their stuff, that can give you the basics and teach you exactly what you should be doing, how to get on and off the bike, things that we're going to go over in subsequent videos down the road, but definitely should do that and make time if there's one local in your area. So my last tip is make sure you look at your local race listings and see if there are any cyclocross training races around. They're usually 20 or 30 minutes long. It's a great place to go over your bike, see if your body's doing what it's supposed to be doing, blow out all the cobwebs, and it's a great place to have a lot of fun. It's too much to get right into the cyclocross season full gas. So doing like a shorter training race to make sure everything's firing on all cylinders is a great way to start your season. And they usually happen around this time of the year, August. So that's my last tip for you guys. If you're loving this cyclocross content, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to leave a comment below, please do. If you want to check out some of the other cyclocross content that we have, check out over here. And if you want to subscribe to GCN, click right there. Okay, so you're new to cyclocross and you literally have zero local resources. There's no training race, there's nowhere to ride, you don't have a friend to go out with, so you need to build it. And how do you build it? Well, today's video is gonna tell you about how to build a cyclocross playground, the tools you need, and the things to think about when you're doing it. First up, you want to make sure that you're picking an area that isn't home to someone, meaning like a dog park where it's really the dog owners are out there, they're enjoying time with their dog. Then you're out on the trail and you're running into them all the time. That's not good for anyone. Like even like a local swimming hole, people are coming up, they're toweling off, they're on the trail, and then whoa, a cyclist rips past them because you're doing an effort out on your training course. Make sure that you pick a place that's not super congested, but is close to town that people don't generally use. Also, you want to make sure that you get land use permission. You don't want to be on private property, cutting things down, creating a track. Don't do that. That's not good for anybody. Gives everyone a bad name. Check with the town, make sure they're okay with you tightening things up, using some existing trails, and it should be close to where everyone's living. That makes it really, really good and easy for people to be able to get to the training course. Last thing is you want to make sure that the terrain is compelling, right? You don't want to just go into an open field. That's not going to give you a lot. You're going to have a lot of setup, be a lot of course tape. Nah, go into a forest where there's going to be natural features that you can use and take advantage of. So depending on the area and the type of terrain, some of the tools that you could use would be a shovel, a rake, loppers, gloves, oh, and a bike. When you get to a new training area, you want to make sure that you look around at the terrain. You want to make sure you know a lay of the land. Imagine it as just a big square and you're starting over here, and then you want to make sure that you get over to there, but you want to make a nice continuous loop, looking at what the area has to offer. This area, as I look out right now, has this beautiful sloping downhill section that is going to make a really nice transition from this side of the course to the other. So make sure that when you first get to the track, you take a look around, you see what natural features are there and what you've got to work with. So now that you know the area and you have a general sense of where you're going, get your loppers out. It's time to take down these just little trees like this. You just want to make sure that things that are going to slap the riders that come out in the face or in the arms, you want to take those down because that's not fun for anyone. You don't want to look like you just got out of a bar fight and you just want to go do some cyclocross. You want to have to go home and explain that to your significant other. And I'm not talking about going in here like a skidder either. It's not like you've got a chainsaw out and you take down all kinds of big trees. Don't do that. That's not what I'm talking about. Just little things that are going to slap your arms and all that, rough out the course, and then you can start to see which features actually are out there for you to be able to use. Okay, so now we're gonna start talking about technical features on the track. And first up is gotta be off cambers. In cyclocross, you gotta have off cambers and you gotta have technical sections because ideally, if you're racing or you're riding around fast, you're trying to force a mistake because it's not just going up a hill as hard as you can go. It's about technical prowess as well. So we're coming into a section that my friends from the Jam Fund, which is a local nonprofit program that we have here in town, have created over the last year. And as you can tell, it is super, super narrow. You definitely have to get your foot out, maybe even kick a little bit because it is so treacherous, off camber, technical. It is a really good feature, and it's pretty much any course around the globe is going to have something like this, and it's just going to make you a much better rider. Now, if you could find some sand or mud on your course, that would be perfect. These are regular features in a cyclocross course because when you're going through the sand, obviously it's super, super technical and makes it really hard. Mud is the same. These things are always moving underneath the tires, so it's never the same lap to lap. So if you have these features, it makes for a really fun, super challenging track that the riders that come out are gonna really enjoy. Barricades. What are you gonna do? You're in the middle of the woods. I don't wanna get my hammer and nails out there with a bunch of 2x4s lugging stuff in. You don't need to do that. Not at all. Go in the woods, when you're out scouting around, find a log like this, drag it out into the middle of the course, nice open section like this where riders can bring some speed in, get set up, jump off, run over, 2 logs in a row. That's great. When you're done with them, real simple, they're out of the way. Technical sections are very important and they're vast. They can be anything really, but the thing you don't want to do is have tons of routes like this going across the track, big old rock gardens with rocks with pointy sharp heads all over the place, because cyclocross bikes aren't designed for that. They don't have any suspension, their tires are generally pretty narrow, and if the riders are doing that, they're just going to be getting jolted all around. You really want to do a reroute if an area has tons and tons of roots and rocks in it, because like I said, the bikes aren't designed for it. And you want to pick the path of least resistance. You don't want to go into something that's like this where you're going to have to take down all kinds of big trees. Look for an area that kind of seems like it flows, maybe an old deer path or something. That's going to be your ticket. Another nice feature to have out on the course is a wide open area like this, where riders can actually take a break and relax for a second from all the technical features that you've included in your course. It's also a place for the more experienced riders to be able to lay a lot of power down and take some time away from their rivals. Drops. Drops are a feature on a cross course that make it really, really challenging, probably for your more advanced riders. But when you're out scouting the course, if you see a nice embankment and the trail's going right above you like this, just take a right and send it straight down. It is a really cool feature to have on your track. Run-ups are a classic feature on the cyclocross courses. Organizers and race designers love them because they push the riders cardiovascularly to the limit, and then they usually follow it up with a technical section right after to hopefully force a mistake and make the race more exciting. For your training course, it's really, really good to have an A and a B line. You want to be able to let the riders that are less experienced go around this section, but for the riders that are more experienced, you want to push them to get off their bike, get up the hill, and then it's nice in a training course at least to be able to have a place for them to remount so that they're ready for the next technical section. One of the last things that you need to think about is the rhythm or the flow of the track. How does it go? You've checked out all of the sections, you've dug them all out, you've made all these cool sections. Now you need to string them together to be able to make the flow of it and the rhythm right. The last thing you want to do is go down a steep drop, then have a huge run up right after it, then go down another steep drop and then another run up. That's not the real flow of a true cyclocross race. You want to make sure that you string the sections together with technical stuff, followed by a nice long stretch, then another technical section, then a drop, then a barrier. Make sure that it has a nice flow to it. Once you get out there and you ride it, you'll know what works. You also want to be mindful of the lap time. You don't want riders to be out there for 10, 12 minutes, 4 or 5, 6 minutes, that's great. A little bit longer than that, it gives riders the opportunity to spread out. It allows you to add some more features. And as the course gets worked in, if you want to make it a little bit longer, then you can add a feature here or there like I showed you earlier in the video. So get your friends, tell the riders that are in your area, hey, we're making a cross course, grab those tools, go out there, make an afternoon of it, and then ride this stuff in. It can be super, super fun. So I hope you liked the video. If you guys tag me in some of the stuff that you've done, I'd love to see your work out there and what you're doing. If you liked this video and you want to give it a thumbs up, please do. If you want to leave a comment below, please do that as well. If you want to check out other cyclocross videos, look over here. And if you want to subscribe to GCN, click right there. I'm here with Jolanda Neff's Swiss Champ Edition Trek Boon. The bike has Swiss flags all over it to designate her win last year at the Swiss National Championships. It's made with Trek's 600 series OCLV, and it is the team edition bike that all of the Trek factory riders are racing on this season. The frame is light blue, which is one of Trek's factory team racing colors, as well as navy blue with the bass boat paint job, and it looks sharp, especially when the light hits it at the right angle. This frame set has Trek's ISO speed technology, which is right here you can see in the rear triangle, also in the front near the head tube. It allows the bike to be able to move a little bit. There's flexion in the carbon fiber. There's no suspension or elastomers on this bike. It's all in how much the carbon fiber moves. And by putting these joints in, Trek says that it allows the bike to be more comfortable in off-road situations like a cyclocross race. Moving on up, this is Trek's proprietary seat post design, which goes over the actual frame set here. It's a 1-bolt seat post clamp, and it's connected to a carbon fiber Arvada Pro Bontrager saddle. Jolanda's running Bontrager Aeolus 2 wheel set mounted up with Challenge Baby Limus 33 tires. Now these are the team edition, and I can only imagine what that means. It's probably something that the sidewall has been reinforced to make it stiffer for their pro riders, or perhaps even softer or lighter. Up front is the Bontrager ISO Core Pro Bar, and we've been told by Trek that this bar has a unique plastic that's been blended into the carbon fiber to allow for a more comfortable ride on something like a cyclocross course. This bike is top shelf in many ways, the componentry no different. Running SRAM's 12-speed AXS Red Grupo. It is wireless, so there are no wires. She's opted for a single ring up front with a Trek-designed single ring chain watcher to make sure that the chain doesn't come off the ring. It's also got a 1033 rear cassette on it, SRAM's rear derailleur with the clutch integrated in it. It also has SRAM Red brakes. It also has the brand new SRAM Red calipers and rotors. All right, we're gonna get some measurements. Jolanda's bike is a 50 centimeter center to center here. It has a 40 centimeter bar on the tops, center to center. It is a 90 stem. The center of the stem to the tip of the saddle is 48, and she's not gonna get out of here without a weight on this machine. Let's see what we've got. 16 pounds on the dot. So that's Jolanda Neff's Trek Boone Swiss Champ Edition. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this machine. If you want to check out other pro bikes, check them out over here. And if you want to subscribe to GCN, please click right there.
Welcome back. We're here live for Meulebeke, the elite men's race coming up in its entirety. I hope you're going to enjoy lots of Jeremy's cyclocross content this winter. If there's something that you would like us to do, leave a comment. We'll try and pick up on those. And remember, we want to hear from you. We want to put an epic montage together of all of our cross community here on both Facebook and YouTube here on GCN Racing. So you can use the uploader via the web and send us your little videos, and we'd love to hear from you. This is round 2 of the Ethias Cross. It's a series that doesn't carry a general classification. Before we get in today, let's remind ourselves on how it went down in Eclo. Phenomenal performance there by Laurent Swig to come through and take that one. Elisabeth Kunten-Hermans up there in that one as well. Helen Wyman is with me again to take us through the elite men's race. And what a race, what a course that we've got here in Meulebeke. Helen, it's super quick out there. For anyone that wasn't with us for the women's race, this course, a little bit of everything, hasn't it?
It really has absolutely everything jammed into each lap. It's really quite an interesting course. It's quite a technical course, and yeah, we saw in the women's race it actually leads to bunch racing.
Now, before we get to today, over in the, if you're not familiar, the cyclocross circuit, a lot of riders going over to the US to take part in the 2 World Cups over there. Jeremy Powers caught up with that man, Laurent Swig, and this is what he had to say.
All right, so we're here at the Trek CXC with the winner of the men's race, Laurent Swig. Laurent, how was it today, ma'am?
Really hot and really difficult to be all the day in front alone. So it was not the best decision, but when you're there, you can go back.
Yeah, dude, at the start, we saw you were powering away like crazy, just super, super fast at the start. Really good first lap, and then you got that gap immediately. I don't think anyone in the heat could like take that risk with you. You went off the front, and well, is that going to pay off on Sunday? What's it going to be like on Sunday for you now?
Yeah, I hope I don't gonna pay off, but yeah, I make the decision 2 days ago to ride, so then my head is on it, so then I can't quit anymore. I think the heat is not the best thing, but yeah, we will see. We have a day to recover.
Yes.
And I hope it will be enough.
Yeah, man. And are you enjoying your time here in the United States so far?
Yeah. It's almost in the end, and I miss my little son a little bit now, so it's good. We're gonna be back on Monday.
Good. Well, we appreciate you making the trip and coming over here and showing off like this. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Quite a rider, Laurence Swake. Helen, well, as soon as we've got pictures, we'll go over to the start. But Helen, Laurence as well in the last few seasons, he's a rider that on his day he can take on anyone.
Yeah, he's very much like Low Sales in the women's peloton last season. When the really top riders aren't there, he absolutely takes his opportunity and gets as many wins as possible. And even when they are there, he's competitive with them. But the likes of Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert are so hard to beat that he just likes to do as good as he can there. And then whenever, like he said, he wanted to race, so he went to the race. And when he's in that race, he wants to win. And that's what he did in Trek.
Now, for those of you that are tuning in, there's no Mathieu van der Poel today. If you watched the World Road Championships last week, I imagine he's probably still trying to recover. He had the Munsterland Giro in the week as well. He'll be taking Helen now a little bit of a short break, would you say, before he comes back into cross?
He said that he's focusing on the DVV Verzekering Trophy Series and also on the World Cup. So the World Cups from now on. And so the first World Cup for him would be Bern on the 19th.
And for Wout van Aert as well, still trying to recover from that crash in the Tour de France. He started to take, I was reading Het Nieuwsblad in the week, he's starting to take those first tentative rides, but it would be such a shame if we don't see him on cross this winter.
It would be massively disappointing because last season he was the only rider that could match one-on-one with Mathieu. So, and then for the sport in general, his skills are really good. He's super strong. He always makes the racing exciting. But yeah, sometimes you have these horrible crashes and they take a really, really long time to come back from, particularly on the road.
Now, today, the field, as we always say, you can only beat who's there on the day. You know, we've got Toon Aert, we've got Elie Iserbyt, we've got Lars van der Haar, Laurence Swake. So we've got a great field that's here. And you were saying a little bit earlier on, Elie Iserbyt has just grown in stature since last winter.
Yeah, it's amazing to see when you see the under-23 riders step it up into the elite racing. It's almost like overnight they become these adult men. And it happened the year before with Laurens Roulier. And I was actually at a race and I saw him. And I said to Steph afterwards, "Who's that?" And he's like, "It's Laurens." Like, oh, God, I didn't recognize him. He's changed so much. And so it is really exciting to see when these guys do. And Tom hasn't developed into the adult version of himself entirely yet. And so for him to compete against those riders will be really exciting to see Tom Pidcock when he's back racing cross. And it's good that you get a mix at the top. And hopefully those riders aren't so much better than the other riders around them that they create the kind of group racing that we've seen in the women's racing that makes it so exciting this year.
Yeah, as I said a little bit earlier on, I'm going to go to Tom Pidcock's team launch in the week, so hopefully we're going to be able to catch up with Tom and just get his thoughts, because he was saying as well in the media in the week, we're waiting for him to make his start into cross, but hope we're going to see him in the elite cross this winter. And looking at the sort of top 10 in the World Cups so far, it's still very Belgian and very Dutch dominated, isn't it? And we need the likes of Tom Pidcock and the following on from Jeremy, your Curtis Whites and Gage Hecht and those sort of riders to come in and start breaking through, because women's cross is so international. Yeah,
even in the race today, there was 5 different nations in the top 15, Whereas when you look at the Iowa World Cup result, the first rider outside of Belgium and Holland was Curtis White in 15th. So for the men, it's definitely much more Belgian-dominated sport. But then the Belgians are brought up with the sport. So the Belgians are brought up with everything being provided to them, every opportunity there. And so it's much easier for them to find their feet in cyclocross than it is for a rider outside of that country.
Now, one rider that's coming back in today is one of my favourite. I've been commentating cross a very long time, but is Lars Bohm coming back into cross, which is great for the sport, isn't it? He's such a big name, big personality, and he's just going to have to again find his way back through.
Yeah, he started a couple of years ago in a race I went to in Spain, and he was actually like 8th or 9th. It shows how strong the depth of the Spanish racing is. And so sometimes you have to work your way back from the back of the peloton. I can't entirely remember what he did last season, but I don't imagine his world ranking is particularly high. So in a course like this, it's really hard to get a good start to move up from the 4th or 5th row. But it's great to have him back, and it's great. I mean, I'd love it if Stuybar came back as well, and Matthew. I think it would be amazing.
Yeah, we're talking as well. Mike Turnerson coming back in. Toon Aerts, you can see the Belgian champion on the front there. Ellie bit just alongside him. And it's worth kind of touching on that a little bit, Helen, because we see Zdenek Stybar. I remember he came back in, was it St. Nicholas last year as well. I think one of the best things for me was Cameron Mason, the young Brit, dive bombing him on the big bank section. But you have to pick up those UCI points, don't you? You have to go off and race just because you're a big name and have been a big star in sport. You don't get that front row start just because of who you are.
No, absolutely. And why should you? I mean, if you spend a year out of the sport, why should you be allowed to come back in at the front of the race? And the rest of us have had to work really hard to keep our UCI ranking high. And there are ways around it. Like Lars went to Spain, did those races. For a rider like Alicia, she was 300th in the world ranking at the beginning of the season. So she went away. She did the races when other people were in America. And from that point on, she's now up to around 60th or 70th in the world ranking. So, you do have to put the effort in. Even riders that didn't leave the sport through their own choice, they've still had to work their way back to the top.
We're ready for the start. Remember, get involved over on the chat forums. I'll do my best to keep track of them. CX Helen and Marty Mac TV are our Twitter as well, if you want to say hello. Lars van der Haar, Corny van Kessel getting ready for the off. Watch the lights. We are almost ready to go here in the elite men's race. And we are underway, off and racing. We said we were in Eeklo. Then the riders, many of them went over to the US for the first rounds of the Telenet UCI World Cup. Now they're back looking to establish themselves again. So getting the good starts here. Van Kessel is there. Lars van der Haar. Riders just trying to find their way through here, through the sort of melee at the back. So getting a good start here. So Lars van der Haar very close towards the front as well. So Dan Suter up here as well. Again, just coming to a halt into the steps. And this becomes even more problematic, Helen, if you don't get a good start into this first step section. You see the riders all getting caught up here.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that you don't want to be involved in, which is why your world ranking is so important for your gridding position. And you saw a rider even got their bike attached to the edge of the metalwork there. So that rider's now probably about 45 seconds down already, and they've only done a minute and a half's racing.
Dan Suter leading out here on the front. So Corny van Kessel, the rider that's right behind him. Michael van Torenhout well up towards the front as well. Michael van Torenhout had a great season last year. One of those riders that the luck didn't quite go his way. So you see here, lap 1. So just rolling out from the off here. David van der Poel getting himself up there as well for Corendon Circus. Dan Suter, the rider on the front here for Marlock Spingal. Always generally comes into the season on good form, doesn't he, Dan Suter?
Yeah, he's a fast rider, and they don't do masses and masses of road racing, but obviously what they do keeps their speed really, really high. And it's a few of these riders, it's really exciting to watch. If you can pick out Tom Mewson, when he goes through these, he actually makes up time on the pump track without pedaling, which is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
So riders again, just I think that was the Neon Velo rider, just getting boxed sideways a little bit through this amazing pump track. If you weren't with us for the women's race earlier on, this great section that we have here, then you drop down, then you've got that run up before the second part of the pump track. Iserbyt, Van der Hart, Van der Poel are all up there. So David Van der Poel is the rider that's there, Ellie Iserbyt. For Iserbyt now, would you say, Helen, bit of pressure now after those 2 World Cup victories, coming back. Now he's got to sort of transfer that against the sort of, the into Europe and see if he can carry that form through the season.
I think carrying the form through the season is the most important thing. You just saw Lars van der Hart actually ride the sandpit. It's very impressive. I think in terms of everybody that's racing, there isn't any men added to this field that weren't in America at the very front of the race. And so for him, he would still expect to be competitive against them. It's only when you bring back in the Matthew van der Poel and Wout van Aert, really, that then you get to see where they are and where he is compared to each other.
There's Lars Bohm going through, as we said. When you haven't quite got those UCI points yet, to try and find your way back towards the front. So Dan Suter, you can see just coming in super hot into the sand, almost slid both feet there. And then, as Helen said, this is impressive from Lars van der Haar. Lars is a rider as well that for him, that will give him a massive boost in confidence, being able to stay on the bike through that section. The only rider that's managed it.
Yeah, and particularly when other riders around him, so it's not like he had a free line and went in first.
So just the front of the Tone Arts is there as well. Dan Suter, the pressure here from Dan Suter. It's just stretching the group very slightly, but not by a lot in cross terms. It's not a big gap. For someone like Lars, coming back as Van Torenhout, just makes his move and just bounces off Corny van Kessel up towards the front. Kessel answers the call, comes back as Van Torenhout gets up towards the front. For those sort of riders like Lars now, he's got to just try and keep pressing on, just got to try and increase those points, maybe take a little trip to, as you said, Spain, the Czech Republic, down to EKZ in Switzerland as well, just to build up those points again. Because you know Lars isn't going to want to ride around at the back here.
Yeah, absolutely. He's not the kind of rider that goes to a race just to be another number. So for him, I'm sure he will go outside of Belgium at certain points, although I'm not sure if he focused on the entire season or not, or if this is just using up form he might have had from the World Championships. But yeah, I mean, if he's serious about cross, then getting your world ranking up to the top 20 is one of the most important things you could do.
Michael Van Torenhout leading out on the front. Iserbyt there, just goes through your picture. So just getting up. Mewson is there as well.
We just saw Ben Turner there in the white and black, white kit with the blue from. He was in Corridon last year, but he's now in one of the other teams owned by the Rudolph brothers.
Yeah, so riding this year for Krefin Friestadt is Ben Turner, wearing number 43. Keep an eye out for him. Stan Godry as well is fairly well up there as well. So there's the Krefin jersey. And again, another rider, super exciting, Quentin Hermans going through this. Stan Godry just going through your picture as well. Thomas Main is very much up towards the front as well. Joshua Dubois goes through. Thomas Main for Tartaletto Iserbyt. He's wearing 39. He's in those familiar yellow colours for Tartaletto Iserbyt. And a winner of the opening round of his home national trophy series. As we come around to the end of lap 1, Tone Arts now comes through towards the front. The Marlux Bingo riders react as they try and come back on there. Van der Haar's dropped back a little bit into that chasing group. There's Main just on the back of that one. So Klepper, Godry, all up there. Marlux Bingo, they've got a huge team this season, haven't they?
They have, because they merged with Vascoud Service, and so therefore they've had to take on a lot more riders than they've had in the past. And the same with the women. They've now got Maud and Laura together with Jolene Verschuren. So, yeah, lots of riders merged into that.
Ryan Camp. So yes, of course, my pal Salzen bingo. It's one of those things when Sky goes from Sky to Ineos, you still keep calling it Marlux. So it is of course pal Salzen bingo. I start getting a lot of grief about that one. My apologies for that one. Sponsors change. The worst part's when we go from Christmas into the New Year and everyone swaps teams between New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So yes, interesting.
And they change all their colours. And all the colours are completely different, and you're like, yeah.
For getting used to that one. Thanks as well. Make sure you spread the word. Thanks all for checking in today. So Williams Nascimento checking in from Brazil. Stephen Cowman just asking as well where Tom Pidcock will ride on the road now that Wiggins is ending. Not quite sure on that one as of yet. That hasn't been that hasn't been made public as of yet. Tom Enduro, no Matty van der Poel, no, not yet. So he will be coming in. He's riding a slightly different program into the pup track. Beautiful shot here on this one. There's Turner and Main getting a good start here on this one. This has got to be one of my favourite sections of any course to watch, this one.
Yeah, to watch, it's fun. My favourite one is actually on Rudevorde, where they have the big high pump track, but they go parallel to each other, and so you can actually see the riders. They look like little rabbits bunny hopping. It's fun. That's a good one.
Niels van der Putte there, you can see there, wearing 82 from Corendon Circus. So this group just trying to establish themselves at the front. It was very much a show of strength. Jaman Outs is also up there for the Telenet Baloise Lions, as the team is now. Elie Iserbyt managing to keep the momentum through the sand. Corny van Kessel does the same. Lars van der Haar showed previous lap that you can carry that momentum through the sand, and doing a great job. He is on that one as well. Dieter Swake going up there as well. There's Thomas Main just running through here. So still very much still very, very tight in the gaps here, Helen, on lap 2.
Yeah, they're only 10 minutes into racing, but it's still really, really close together. I think you can see there as well, towards the back of the field, as you start to run, you actually cut up the lines of the riders. So in a sandpit, you want the ruts, and when riders are running over it, they disperse the rut. So the first person back into the sand has the toughest job. But you can see there was obviously quite a lot of running last lap because they weren't very spread out, and so the lines have gone again, which is a shame.
So Elie Iserbyt, you can see just starting to stretch a bit of a gap here at the moment is Elie Iserbyt. So again, great move here by Iserbyt. Just has a little glance back over the shoulder. Of course, the work being done here by Corny van Kessel to try and bring this one back. So lap 2, you can see just over 10 minutes of racing. Van Torenhout is looking around. Toon Aerts comes up to help his teammates. So between Paul Sales and Bingo, looks like a battle between them and the Telenet Baloise Lions. So many sponsors, Helen, that have battled it out for many, many seasons in their various guises.
And that was a good move that Elie made at that point, because he had 3 other teammates in that group. So there's only one person to do the work. And again, it's a good move of Toon Aerts to come around his teammate on the front, who will not necessarily slow it down, but isn't going to chase him back again. So it could form a really nice group of 2 off the front. When you're in a group of 2, it's much easier to actually ride your race and get a bit of recovery, whereas when you're on your own, it's really hard. When you're in a group of 5 or 6, you really have to be on that second wheel, so you're always fighting and you're focused on fighting, which means sometimes you lose.
Iserbyt goes down on the planks. You could almost saw that coming there, the way he went into that first one.
Yeah, I feel like he might have clipped something and then pulled a foot out. Oh, yeah. Now Toon Aerts is on his own off the front.
Just as she said. So Iserbyt, you can see Elie Iserbyt here. He's taken a bit of a whack there as well. Pride always hurts as well when that happens at the head of the race. But Elie Iserbyt, let's have a look at this one. Let's have a look, see what happens. So goes over the first one. He just clipped that the front, and his right foot came out. Almost looked like, as you said, Helen, he clipped that first plank, and then that was enough for his foot to come out.
Yeah, I think that's what happened there. And you want your shoe cleats really tight in the pedals, but you don't want them too tight that you can get your feet out. But sometimes things like that just happen, and you the reason why everybody practices hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times all summer long on the barriers is so that hopefully things like that don't happen in the race.
So he's just getting now. Again, you just have to try and recover. Again, psychologically, sometimes when you go down like that as well, it takes it just dents your rhythm a little bit sometimes.
Quite often, one of two things happen. Either you think you've injured yourself and then you don't want to push it and you need to assess a little bit, or sometimes you get such an adrenaline buzz that you're straight back onto that group. And so in this situation, I feel like he thinks he might have hurt himself a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to assess whether he actually has or whether he's okay to go again.
So you have it going down Swake into that group. Ben Turner and Thomas Main are both in that group just behind. So again, for as we said, as Helen said, for Elise a bit, just think again, trying to work out if you've actually hurt yourself on that one. There's Turner and Main for British fans as well. Spectators, just a few of you just checking in as well. Beth Crumpton's just finished racing. I've just noticed that she's just checked in as well. Martin McTavie as well. So come on, Thomas Main. So a lot of Thomas's fans are on there. Julien Jégu, Antoine Benoist, cheering for Antoine. Paul Hogberg as well, just checking in over on Facebook. Thanks all of you for saying hi. So the checking out here, so Tone Arts, you just see the Pal Salzen Bingo riders just running on to the back of that group now. Now it sort of seems as well, that little tumble by is a bit, hands the numerical advantage back just a touch to the Telenet Balois team with the Belgian champion, Tone Arts at the front, so into the pump track section. Van Toren out, Suter, Hermans, Van Kessel, and Arnouts. So through this section. So again, they got for Telenet, they kind of need to find that dominance again, don't they? Which is easier said than done in cross now. They've had with the dominance last year, particularly of Mathieu van der Poel.
Yeah, I think it's really hard when somebody is so much better and naturally that much faster than the rest of the riders. Because if there's somebody who's just a little bit better than you, then you can quite often in a race push yourself to take risks, to take the boundaries of the course and to see what you're capable of doing. And every time you do that, you make yourself a little bit stronger and able to hold that wheel for a quarter of a lap longer next time. Whereas when a rider's a minute and a half ahead of you, you can't see what they're doing differently to you. So it's much harder to close that gap. And so now, this season so far, these are the front of the race. These are the best riders in the world. There's no one outside of Europe that would be up there at the minute. So, you know, they're actually getting the opportunity to learn from each other, to see what they're missing and what they need to improve.
Ellie Isabet just into the pits there for a bike change. So if you're watching cyclocross for the first time, there's your head of the race. Arts, Van Toren out, Suter, Hermans, Van Kessel and Arnouts is your leading group. So if you're watching cyclocross for the first time, you can change bikes. So you go into the pits. And again, if you haven't watched cross for a while, so riders like Tone Arts as well. It's a little bit warmer today. He's got the bottle on the bike.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. I wouldn't have... Maybe you might have been sick in the week or something, or he might really suffer with the heat, but I didn't think he did. So maybe in the week he's got a bit of a sore throat or something, and it might help. Sometimes you do that. Sometimes gels are really good for that as well. Although you pick your bike up a lot on this course, so I wouldn't necessarily think that a bottle cage is something you choose to have unless you had to.
It's interesting as well seeing he's not got it on the seat tubes. A lot of riders, when you have a bottle on the bike, they normally put it on the seat tube rather than in the traditional place to help you be able to pick the bike up.
Yeah, that's what I would have anticipated, but yeah, potentially, like I say, potentially he's been sick this week and he needs it for stop his throat hurting or something that simple.
A few shout outs over on the forum as our lead group just tries to get established. Robert Zemenek, so great loving hearing Helen commentating all the way from the Czech Republic. Julini from Mexico, thanks all of you as well for letting us know where you're watching. EA is asking, is Antoine Benoit racing? Yes, Antoine is here. Norman Boschke, Michael Van Torenhout looking good over the summer, added a few kgs, maybe he's been in the gym. So added a few watts as well. And someone just asked as well, Stephen Cameron, it might be something, what's a lot of people as well technically on GCN are always curious about watts and power. What are you generally putting out? I know you said earlier in the women's race that you've raced cross with a power meter on. What are riders generally putting out?
So obviously the power doesn't include what your power is when you're running, because when you're off the bike, and a course like this today, apart from the barriers, you're off the bike a lot, and in the women's racing, off the bike on the barriers as well. So it's hard to say, but for me, based on a maximum aerobic power of 320, I would probably put out around 210 watts average across a cross race, but then those 250 sprints would be between 300 and 600 watts and about 5 to 6 seconds. So for me, I'm not an elite man. I was an elite woman, and I was much more of a diesel in races. So the mud races and things like that were what I was really good at. And so the super fast sprinty races, I'd imagine there'd be more peaks, less sustained power, and probably a lot higher peaks. So, you know, maybe these guys could put out 1,000 watts. I really have no idea what they would actually put out, but I'd imagine a rider like Toon Aerts would be very different to a rider like Lars van der Haar in the way that they race. And so that's why power is so hard to use in a race. You record it and look at it afterwards, but you don't actually use it when you're racing like you would in a time trial.
So Aerts, Van Doornhout, Van Kessel, Suter, Hermans and Arnouts. Then Ellie Isabit. So Isabit with Klepper, Dieter Zweig, Lars van der Haar, David van der Poel, Ben Turner and Thomas Main are in that chasing group behind me. The leading group is made up there of Quentin Hermans, Dan Suter, Michael Van Torenhout, Toon Aerts and Jim Arnouts. Ellie Isabit has gone through there, and he has got Nicholas Klepper with him for company. Ellie there's done the right thing, just taking the while just to check himself out, you can see he's still kind of rubbing his leg just to sort of see how he's feeling. He's just taking that moment just to try and let himself recover and just double check that he hasn't done any serious damage.
Yeah, and he actually jumped the barriers on the last lap as well. So I think it's important that when you do have a crash on a certain section that you just continue, and when you get back to that section you do it as if you hadn't crashed, and that mentally makes you feel much better than if you stop and then start running and things like that, because then you'll lose confidence in what you're doing. And you also see there in the elite men that I think it was Tom Hewson that went over the top of the steps, and he jumped back on his bike with his front wheel over the ramp on the descent. And it's quite a scary thing to do, but it actually saves you a lot of time, because the momentum of jumping on carries you down the hill faster than if you jump on at the top, then have to pedal and then go down the hill.
There you have it. You seeing the insight onto the pump track. Ellie Isabit is just trying to drag this group back. Klepper is the rider. You can see the little interviews that we're getting on the site as well. So there's the group. There's not a gap. There's Turner, Main. So these are all just almost coming back as well, this chasing group. There's Turner for Crefin. There's Main for Tartaletto Isarex. So for British fans, you can see those riders having a great day out here. Toon van den Bosch is the rider that's getting back. Michael Van Torenhout and Toon Aerts really dishing it out to each other at the front. For me, Helen, Michael Van Torenhout, over the last few seasons, he's a former World Under-23 champion. We saw him last winter as well. Like this, he'd get that gap, then he would just suffer a little bit of bad luck, a little crash here, a little tumble there. You know, he's a rider. I love his riding style. He's a really gutsy rider. He kind of, again, just needs the cards to fall for him again to start picking up those victories, because you're not World Under-23 champion and then not, you know, one of the best in the world as an elite.
Yeah, I think that he's a really lovely guy. He's always incredibly enthusiastic about cross. He just loves riding his bike, and it's really cool to see when riders are that good at the front of the race and also that passionate about the sport. His technique is very good. He's actually a very technical rider. He's very gifted. You saw how fast they were going through the woods, and that's all like loose, muddy, leafy ground, and it's actually a lot harder than it looks. It looks like it's just fast and flat and straight, but it's actually really twisty and with the possibility to crash quite easily. But yeah, I think he's a really good rider, and I think his time will come for sure.
Lap 4 of 10. I'm going to stick my neck out today. I'm going with Van Toren out today. He's my man for the win. I'm going for a win for Michael Van Toren out today. I'll let you decide, and you can pick one as well. But I'm sticking my neck out. I think Julia Valorino over on the chat as well just agrees with me. Fabio Nerfer, is that Yves Lampard? Yes, it was. I wasn't sure if we're getting that one. Stephen Cowman watching while on Zwift. I'm sure a few of you are all watching while you're on Zwift as well. So thanks for getting good workout while you're watching the cyclo-cross. But Michael Van Toren out now is opening up a decent gap now here on lap 4, just under 23 minutes of racing so far. And you can see again, as soon as Michael Van Toren out starts to go to the front, those Pau and Bingo riders just dropping off a little bit towards the back of the group. Michael as well, when you look at him, the way he bunny hops the barriers and the way he holds his bars on the top is almost a little mountain bike style compared to most other riders.
I have never seen someone jump the barriers as fast as he did when we were practicing on the pre-ride for Trek Cup. It was just ridiculous. So I feel like because he's such a skillful rider, he quite often, maybe he's in the past become quite reliable on his skills rather than having to put loads of work in, loads of like big thresholdy work in. And now maybe he's started to actually build his training. I was on the team with a rider who has been on the team with him, and they have suggested that potentially he doesn't train to the maximum of his ability.
That's always that's an interesting way to put it, isn't it? You've got, at this point as well.
I mean, yeah, if you're talking he only does 10 or 12 hours a week training, then that's less than I did as an elite woman. So how is it that he's up there on such little training? But equally, you never know. People don't tell you the truth in these times. So
yeah, if that's the truth, how good could he be? If that is the case, that is something that you do wonder sometimes, don't you? So we're coming around. Van Toren out here is now putting the pressure on. Goes through that gap. Let's have a look, see what the gap now is. So there's a gap back to Tone Arts, the next group going through. So Arts, Hermans, Van Kessel, Suter, Arnouts, and Isabit, the teammate here of Michael Van Toren now, has now got back on to that group. So the next riders, Lars van der Haar going through here with Klepper. And they're going Ryan Camp, David van der Poel, Dieter Swake, and then just a little gap back there back to Thomas Main. So Thomas Main and Turner riding inside the top 15 here. So as an elite level as well. We've got to remember that a lot of the riders that may be just inside that top 10, just outside that top 10, are still under 23s as well.
Yeah, they seem to have reduced the number of under 23 races in a lot of the races in Belgium this year, and I think it's maybe only the DVB and Super Prestige that still have them. So for these riders, they have to go racing with the elites, and that will bring them on, but it also doesn't show them how to win races. But, you know, they do have the World Cups. They do have other opportunities where they can race. And riders like Ben and Thomas are incredible bike riders, and they're still so young as well. They're only 19 years of age. And, yeah, they're maybe not the Tom Pidcocks of the world, but equally, neither was Tone Arts when he was their age. So I think that it's really important that you understand how fast the very front of this elite race really is.
So if you ever get the chance to come and watch one of these races live as well, if you ever get the opportunity to go to one of the Belgian cyclocross races, do it. You won't regret it. Elie Isabit punches his way through to the front of this group now on that little rhythm section. Tone Arts, you can see their battles back to the rider that he's been battling it out with in the World Cups. But good to see Ellie Isabit recovering for David van der Poel, Dieter Sweek, just on the other side there. So Michael Van Toren out, pressing on with his advantage. You're gonna pick a winner yet, Helen? There's
no,
three
only
under
halfway
the bus.
through the race. At this point, I'd say Michael Van Toren out, but yeah. Oh, well, you've chosen him, so I'm gonna say 2 nuts then.
Okay, right. The race prediction then is it all comes back together and then Ellie Isabit wins. You watch.
Yeah.
now that we've just cursed both Michael Van Toren out and Tone Arts, you know about the GCN curse. But it'll all come back together and Ellie Isabit will win it now. You watch that. So thanks as well checking in, Patrick Clifford on the turbo in Ireland. Thanks all of you for saying hi. Great to have you all on board. Remember, spread the word and let everyone know that we're here. Ryan Camp just goes sideways in the sand there. Dieter Sweek just going through as well. And just a little... Thomas Main. Oof, is that Thomas Main? No, it's not. Just a little bit further back there. Xander Hazels. I just thought the where that was in the groups. Not Thomas Main, it's Xander Hazels that's gone down heavy there as well. I haven't seen so many tumbles on the planks for a while.
These actually look like quite high planks, to be fair. Yeah. The last round of the Ethias series had really low ones, so it's surprising. Maybe they just assumed, as I would. I actually told Anna that she needs to ride the barriers today, but when it came to the race and I saw the height of them, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have told her that. But yeah, she obviously
they're
didn't.
Quite high, definitely. Yeah. So. Just as well, little comment as well. I've just said as I get over here. Andrew Bell combining the Ghent 6-day DVV hammer. Looking forward to it. I would as well. Make sure you take a week off work to thaw out from the beer and frites that you're going to consume at both the Ghent 6-day and the DVV trophy. So yeah, if you're going to do that, make sure that you have a week of detox afterwards. The state of the race: Tone Arts, Ellie Isabit chasing down Michael Van Toren out here. So Tone Arts, the Belgian national champion. Then that chasing group, Dan Suter just on the back here. So having a good day out. The man that led out from the start into the planks. Tone Arts gets that Isabit. You just see Xander just getting a little bit of attention. He's gone down with a real whack. But Tone Arts, again, Tone Arts has got that sort of style, hasn't he, Helen? Second half of the race, just that ability. We saw it last year, just opens up the throttle, just has that late on charge in a race, just gets quicker and quicker and quicker as the race goes on.
Yeah, he's a really powerful rider, and he's obviously got a really good endurance base in order to put those power out. So he never ever dies at the end of a bike race. So I think that he'll be up there on the podium for sure.
Coming in early on in the season, does the road stuff that the likes of Telenet have been doing, does that help you into the cross season, or do you really have to go away and really work on that top end to be able to come into the cross season on top form?
I think it's a really difficult balance to get between road racing and cross racing, and it's difficult because if you do a full road season, it's really long, and these guys on the road are doing 200k races. So for them, it's long training, it's long hours on the bike, and the season starts before the cross season ends and ends after the cross season starts. So it's almost impossible to do year-on-year full road and full cross seasons. But it is important, I think, for riders to pick races where they can be competitive, because they can assess their form and how their training's gone in the summer. But it's also important that they don't pick road races that are so hard that they just get dropped, because then you're not getting any training. So for the women, the riders are doing UCI stage racing, because there's only one real level, but apart from outside of World Tour. And for the men, these guys do the Belgian races. They do a lot of UCI racing, but again, outside of World Tour. So they are getting the experience and the speed, and just sitting in a peloton at 45k an hour is actually really, really good training.
Van Toren out, still at the front here. In terms of this, looking at this group, so we've got Telenet we've got Pau Sals and Bingold, 2 riders in there with Ellie Isabit and Dan Suter. People are always quite interested in terms of team tactics and how this can play out, because Isabit, if he wants to get up towards the front, you won't see generally, you don't get the same sort of tactics that you get in road racing.
No, not at all. And there are teams in cross, but they don't really ride as teams. I mean, in the past, potentially you might be really good friends with a rider, and so you might go on the front and destroy yourself to close a gap for them, or you might let a wheel go so that the other riders in that group have to put their effort in. But in terms of actually working together like you do on the road, it's so hard because your skills are so different, and you quite often see that the riders take different lines. So how are you supposed to get an advantage if you're not on that wheel anyway? So
there you go, back to that chasing group. It's all about Telenet Valois Lions that are doing the chasing. You can see Isabit and Suter, though, are just poised and ready just in case anything happens at the front in terms of Michael Van Torenhout. But Van Torenhout is looking good at the front today. So can he carry this speed? Can he hang on and take this one? There would be a lot of people that would be super happy if he manages to hang on and take this one into the sand, just trying to carry that speed for as long as he can through there. So again, just manages to do that great power through there for Van Torenhout.
yeah, I think a lot of people would like to see him win. He's a really nice guy, and you always want the good guys to win, don't you?
Yeah, he's still only 25 though, Michael Van Torenhout. So a little bit more about your leader. So he's been European champion as well as an under-23 back in 2013. World under-23 champion in 2015 over in Tabor. He's won the GCs as well, the World Cup twice as an under-23 as well. He's won the Super Prestige as an under-23. And it's almost like his move from under-23 coincided with Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel also stepping up, because then they came into the elite ranks, and it just almost, he's up there and he's there and thereabouts, but it's sort of, again, just getting yourself established at that top level.
Yeah, sometimes you do get overshadowed by the very strong riders like that come into the sport and move up early. But equally, he's still held his own in a lot of places, and he may not win, but he does have a lot of podiums. So maybe he could be the Kevin Powells.
Yes, indeed. 8 podiums in total he had last year, as well as 2 overalls in the general classification. Just a few of you checking in as well. Malcolm Lewis asked if that Thomas Main who's down. No, it's not. It's Xander Hazels that went down for Tartaletto Isarek. So I know a lot of you fans of Thomas Main just asking if it's Thomas. It's not. It's Sander Hazels that went down pretty heavy. Matt Benfield checking in, heading over to the Koppenberg Cross on the 1st of November. A great one to choose and one as well. You won a few Koppenberg Crosses in your time, Helen?
Yeah, a few, yeah. No, it's one of the best races on the circuit. It's such an amazing race. So much fun to watch, a great atmosphere, and yeah, in my opinion, it's one of the best races.
Yeah. Just a few of you as well. Peter Thomas checking in from Wales. Thanks for joining us. It seemed like an eternity waiting for cross. It did for me as well. I was so excited coming in here today to do some cross. Tim Merlier, Tante just asking us, Tim Merlier abandoned cyclocross? I hope not. Tim Merlier, again, great road season Merlier has had. Lars van der Haar running the planks as well. Lars as well. Lars is a rider, again, slightly smaller in stature. I can say that because I'm one myself. Again, as you said, Hella, he's quite sort of similar height to Ellie a bit. You see Lars bunny hopping those planks. It's always been a bit of a nemesis kind of obstacle for Lars.
Yeah, I think it has been other riders as well in the past, but such is cross now. Everybody has to be able to jump the barriers, and that's really hard for the guys, because you do genuinely lose time. The way at the minute that the women's field is going, in probably 5 or 6 years, I'd imagine you'd have to be able to jump the barriers at the front of the race, because it will be a disadvantage like it is in the men's. But right now it's not. But even so, I think you really see the gap that Lars has, and that probably relates to things like not having the confidence to be able to do the barriers.
Lap 7 of 10 we go into. Michael Van Torenhout still leading here, 36 minutes and 36 seconds of racing. Then your chasing group just going back. Toonarts, Contan Hermans here, topping and tailing the group with Dan Suter and Elise a bit, and Corny Van Kessel just trying to get on. 17 seconds is the gap, 16 back to the front of that group with Toonarts. This is again, this is the strongest performance that we've seen for a while. As we said, on the podium 8 times last winter was your leader Michael Van Torenhout. Can he transfer that into a victory today for the Paushausen Bingoal team? And again, he just wants to shine a bit of spotlight back on himself. There'll be a lot of attention on his teammates. Ellie Isabit coming into this one. So again, just wanting to pull back a little bit of the spotlight a little bit.
I think that when you're in a team that big, you probably do have to actually make a point of being up there at a race and trying to win a race in this way, because you have such great riders like Ellie Isabit, sorry, and yeah, struggling with that one today, and you know, you have to show that you're one of the best ones as well. And I've never actually been on a team with other women in cyclocross, but with Gabby, but with other women that are the winning bike races in cyclocross. So I haven't actually ever felt that level of competition within a team, but I'd imagine that there is a bit of that going on in this, especially when you merge 2 teams.
Yeah, it's, again, you're sort of getting that hierarchy of power back a little bit, isn't it? I mean, the loss of, again, of that sort of setup. You mentioned Kevin Powell's a little bit earlier on, but again, he was, for a quiet man, he was such a presence, wasn't he?
Yeah, Kevin was a fantastic presence in the races, and he'd be right up there now as well. He was a very skillful rider, but equally, there would be no kind of how do you put that? That's not rude. There's no kind of infighting. There's no alpha male thing going on when it comes to Kevin, because he just got on with it and did his own thing, and I don't think he really necessarily noticed what other people were doing around him. So but they're big personalities, and when you're winning bike races, you are overly confident, and that overconfidence can quite often come across as being a bit alpha male, really, which must be quite hard in these teams.
Yeah, Toonarts now, the Belgian champion, just pressing on, starting to gap that chasing group. It's going to be up here to Ellie Isabit and Dan Suter just to try and pull this back. But the Belgian champion, you can see now, he smells the gap that he's got. As Jeremy Powers would always say, smells blood in the water. Got that shark thing that goes, Shark Week going on. He always likes that one. But Toonarts now pressing on here. It's very. I sound a bit like Alan Partridge if I say that. I don't want to have a Partridge moment. Ellie Isabit though giving chase. Jamie Rial just asking as well. Good question for Helen. Are the riders riding tubeless or clinchers?
Everybody in the front of the elite race will be on tubular tyres. The main ones are Challenge or Dugast. There's PDX, other companies as well, but most Dutch riders use Dugast, and everyone else just picks between the two.
Yeah. So again, they're just why for those that are watching that might be racing and are looking at that investment, why do tubulars in cross? Why are they a better choice?
So the sidewall of a tubular is much more supple than a tyre, than a clincher or tubeless. The difficulty in tubeless is that we're only allowed 33mm tyres, and in order to use a tubeless to its best use, you need to go slightly wider than that. So tubeless burps when you run it really low, whereas a tubular you can run as low as, like I said, Anna rode 12 or 13 psi in America. So also, if you puncture, you can still use that to get to the pit. You don't have problems where your tyre will fall off. But mostly it's because you can run that tyre softer, which means that you can flatten the tyre where it needs to be flat so it gets the most grip. And they just feel faster, basically. But you have to remember these guys at the front of the race are running 20 sets of wheels. So they can have their 8 different tyre choices on 2 sets of wheels, and then any extra that you might want. For if it's really muddy, you might want 3 or 4. But they also run 3 or 4 bikes. So for them, and they get the stuff pretty much given to them. So it's much different than if you're an amateur. But I would say that tubulars are worth the investment if you can afford them. If not, you can get some great handmade clincher tyres, which run really nicely as well.
Ellie Isabet latches on to Tone Arts here. If you're just tuning in, welcome aboard here to GCN Racing. We're in Meulebeke today for the Ethias Cross, round 2. And your leader, Michael Van Torenhout here, is going to come round to see 8 laps of 10. 42 minutes of racing and counting. His teammate Elias a bit with Tone Arts. You can see he's just glancing back across the circuit here. Tone Arts has got a traditional fast finish. It was just 16 seconds on the last lap. Tone Arts, you can see now, is turning up the pressure, and they've got that gap back now. 11 seconds. They're starting to eat into the advantage here of Van Torenhout, because again, Helen, for those that have been with us from the start, Van Torenhout's been out there for the best part of the race here. He's right on the limit.
Yeah, I mean, we called him as a winner on lap 4, so he's already been out there for half the race. But I think as well, when you're at the front, you have a slight advantage because you can control what you're doing, whereas when you're chasing, you're actually working slightly higher than your ability at times to try and use every advantage to get back. So as long as he stays calm and doesn't make too many mistakes, it's the onus is on Tone Arts and Elizabeth to actually bring them back to the front of the race.
Yeah, so as we said a little bit earlier on when I made my prediction that Michael Van Torenhout was going to win, then we said that you went with Tone Arts. We said it's all going to come back together and Elizabeth's going to win. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Bento Gallardo, thanks for checking in. Silas Arvold as well, saying he'd have been lapped 18 times, 3 times by a marshal by now. Yep, you and me both. So thanks all of you for your comments and checking in. Talking about the chat and discussion, you see that the team managers along the side, you know, as the race progresses, if you think it's going to come down to a bit of a group sprint or that kind of thing, again, is that something, relaying that information, changing the tyres potentially at the back end of or changing the bike potentially for the back end of the race to a totally different setup if you're going to have a bunch kick or a group kick between yourselves and someone like Tone Arts?
I don't think that you would necessarily change yourself. In a race this fast, you wouldn't risk going in the pit to change bikes at all because you'd lose too much time. I don't think I've ever seen someone race on the sprint on the 11 at a sprint finish. So you're never going to need more gears than you already have on that bike. But I have seen people start on different pressures because the first half of the race might be really important, but then it might become crazy mud. And I have seen riders use a pressure which isn't suitable to every area, or a tyre that isn't suitable to every area of the course, because 80% of the course is really good on it and it's only 20% that isn't. So, I mean, the team managers do stand there, they do watch, they are watching on the big screen that you can't see, but there's a big screen near the pit, there always is, and so they're watching what's happening on the big screen and seeing what we see, and so communicating that to the riders. And yeah, you know, in the women's race earlier, if I was at the course, I would have been sending messages. If I wasn't at the course, I would have been sending messages to the team manager to give some instruction to Anna, because when you're really not new to the sport, but when you're at the front of the race for the first time, you don't have that tactical experience that a rider like Sana might have. And so it's really important that somebody that has been at the front of the race and has raced those riders can say, oh, you need to do this at this point.
Michael Van Torenhout leading out. As we went through that last line, he had 10 seconds gap over Tone Arts and his teammate Elias a bit. So far this season, he had a victory recently in Vittel, in Lorraine, in France. Gianni Meersman there, just giving him a little bit of a shout there, just to let him know what's going on. He was third in the Trek Cyclocross Cup number 2 as well. So he has had a victory so far this season. Looking back, he had 1 win last year as well, nothing in 2017, and he had a win back in 2016 as well on the Park Cross in Meulebeke. So again, looking to try, and when you go across to those sort of races in sort of Vittel and France, or races like that, with going up against the likes of Tone Arts and hanging on for a win here, it's this would be a big one for Michael Vantoren out.
Yeah, like I said, Michael Vantoren's always up there or thereabouts, but to win races is really different. And this year will be really different on the men's peloton because you don't have Wout for a long time. You don't have Matthew for a few more weeks at least. So these guys are showing what they're good at and showcasing that their racing's really good. And you saw Gianni Vermeersch there actually had a stopwatch in his hand. And so I think he was shouting up the time gap, which sometimes is really good to have and other times isn't so good to have.
Again, now we're looking back, you can see the face of Tone Arts. When you look now deep into the face, and this is kind of what Tone Arts, it almost looks like this is what he likes to do. That gap, he had to try and close it really, really quickly. He's got that real burn, it seems, that he can do. And now you can see the effort is on. He's right on his max as well. Michael Vantorenhout's had the message, and now it's a straight battle. Eli Iserbyt now can just sit back because you can see now the effort that Tone Arts has made. He almost seemed like he had to get on really, really quickly.
I think that at that point, you can see where your competition is, and sometimes it's motivating and other times it's actually demotivating, because at the same point the last lap he might have been closer and now he looks and it's like, oh, the gap's bigger, and that's demotivating. But other times it might come closer, and then at that point you're like, okay, I can put this last effort in. I mean, to me that looks like the gap's extended from last lap.
Yeah, he looks like he's put the pressure on again, Michael Vantoren out. So we were saying, was he on the limit? Was he working? So and back, but now he's pulled the gap back out. So we saw the last lap that Tone Arts had managed to pull that back to 10 seconds. It's gone back out again to 17 seconds. So Vantoren out, looking good today. There's Dan Suter going through. They've got Iserbyt in that chasing group again. That second option, should it come back, but it looks like Tone Arts is completely on the ropes again. Vantoren out has fought back, pushed back against that chase by Tone Arts. And Quentin Hermans and Lars van der Hart just go through next. So there's your top 10 so far. Suter van Kessel then going through Lars van der Hart. So just gradually clawing that gap back. Now Iserbyt goes. So Eli Iserbyt now. This is, again, we were talking a little bit earlier on, Helen, about tactics. This is now about Eli Iserbyt trying to, again, maybe secure the podium for Paushausen bingo, but is just about getting rid of, shaking off Tone Arts here.
Well, you see as well how I said that as a rider you use markers on the course to see how far away and how close you are, and Ellie's obviously thought at this point, well, we're not as close as we were before, he might be suffering a bit, this is the best opportunity I'm going to have to attack him and try and drop him. So he's been on the front for the last 3 laps, let's see what I can do and give it a chance, because even if Tone Arts comes straight back to him, he can just sit back on the wheel again.
Well, a few comments as well over on the our chat. Kevin Barnett just commenting as well. Daniel just asking, Michael Vantoren dismounting on the drive side. Yeah, we call that a dirty side dismounter, don't we? And Kevin Powles was famous for that one.
Yeah, he's a lefty. I think there are some advantages to being a lefty, but there are others that aren't so much of an advantage. It's just what you are naturally, and whenever I've done any cyclocross clinics, I've tried to encourage people to do what's natural to them, not what I do. So for me, I'm the right side dismounter and remounter, whereas yeah, you come across quite a lot of lefties and they just have to learn that's the best way to do it for them. And some people are able to do it both ways, which does also have massive advantages.
Again, when you come into an obstacle like we saw right at the beginning, Ellie really attacking the sand here. You can see the bike going in a million different directions underneath the rider. Tonart's keeping that power on all the way through the sand. That was a great shot there, and a great demonstration there, Helen, of how as a rider you develop that style in the sand. And when that bike's dancing around underneath you, and it's just about trying to practice keeping that forward motion.
Yeah, Jonathan Page used to describe it as like being on a motorboat when you accelerate, and it kind of like you're digging in with your back wheel, but you're trying to keep the front end loose, because that's how your bike will tell you where it's going to go, basically, and you just have to power down and hopefully come out of it the other end without having expended too much energy.
Hang on, hope for the best. Michael Van Torenhout will be hoping for the best here. Can he take this victory here in the Ethias Cross here in Meulebeke? If you're just joining us, welcome aboard. Welcome to GCN Racing. We are live on both YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for all your comments and your input. This long shot now. Elie Iserbyt sees his teammate ahead of him. There's to the wheels of Tonart's just coming around that bend for the Telenet Baloise Lions. Again, there's that battle. There's a tradition between these two teams particularly, isn't there?
Yeah, I think there's tradition between every Belgian team, really. But to the Belgian, cyclocross is so important. It's their number one sport. It's their biggest love, and they're most passionate about it. So to any Belgian sponsor, to spectators, to teams, they want to get one over on the other teams around them.
So Elie Iserbyt, what a great season that he is having. That's those 2 wins over in the US in the Telenet UCI World Cups. So, you can see they've made the most here in Meulebeke of everything. This goes around a lot of the football pitches, and it gives us a little bit of everything onto the barriers again, the planks, and Elie Iserbyt carries that speed through. Again, we saw after that fall a little bit earlier on, he's battled back so well, hasn't he?
He really has, because he dropped down right into around 12th or 15th place. So in order to come back and then not just come back to Tonart's, but to come back to the middle in between these two is really very impressive.
Again, it shows where he is and the leaps that, and again, you've talked quite a bit today about how the physical difference in someone like Elie Iserbyt, all of a sudden he goes from being that under 23, that teenager, to being a grown man, and the difference in the power and coming back. Just again, it shows the maturity of someone, and again the maturity of someone that sort of belies his years. He's the best in the world as under 23 and junior, those battles with Tom Pidcock, but having that confidence, that maturity, just to sit back and go, hang on, I've just got to make sure that I'm all right before I start picking my way back through.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there are occasions where adrenaline does kick in really quick, and there are other occasions where you are quite sensible, but you have to think as well, to these guys, this is we're into the end of the first month, beginning of the second month of racing for cross, and it's really, really early in the season, and so you don't want to get a knee injury that will put you out for another 6 weeks. You want to make sure that you're absolutely fine. Ultimately, it's just a C2 race. It's not a classification race. There's no titles on offer. So if you have to pull out of the race, you have to pull out of the race. But he was sensible in reassessing and thinking about it. And you see he's closed the gap to around 9 to 10 seconds now, which Tonart's wasn't able to do on that last 3 laps.
No. Michael Van Torenhout's not going to be a happy bunny, though, is he, if he gets caught past by his teammate after a day out in front like this?
I don't know how he'd feel about that. I don't know how good friends they are. I don't even know if Elie Iserbyt will actually come back to him at this point. It is the last lap, and you do have that extra buzz of being on the last lap, especially when you're in the lead at the front. Yeah,
they've changed. So lap 10 of 10, last lap. Michael Van Torenhout has just got to keep the pressure on again. Not let any minute, because again on this last lap here, Helen, just those tiny little minute errors, isn't it, that sometimes can be just that difference between winning and losing. It's so the margin for error is so small at this point.
It really is. Although on a fast course, 10 seconds is still a lot of time. So even though it doesn't sound like a lot of time, it is probably, it's a lot more than 10 seconds on a muddy course, because one slip on a mud course and you can close 10 seconds really, really quick. Whereas on this, you even saw when in the women's race earlier, when Celine stumbled on the corner, they were all back within like 30 seconds. So fast courses, the time gaps are a lot more than it feels.
There's Tonarts just trying about Elias a bit, is trying to hold off. Tonarts, he exits the rhythm section, the pump track. Michael Vantorenhout, as we said, he's had a win in France just a week ago. Now he's looking to try and take a welcome victory here in the Ethias cross here in Meulebeke. This would be a big victory for him if he can take it. Elias a bit though is hunting him down behind. And again, you'd be hoping, I'm hoping my teammate's not going to come back to me, but again, there's just those things that can creep into your mind.
I don't think you actually think that. I actually think you're thinking more along the lines of, like, don't make any mistakes, just full gas to the finish, sprint out the corner, all things like that. You're not, I mean, someone asked me the other day, what do you think of in a cross race? And I honestly can't tell you what I think of, but I do know that I'm focused on what I'm doing. And so you're focused on making sure you're doing it to the best of your ability, making sure you don't take stupid risks. It's the last lap. You've got, probably 3 minutes left of your race. So it's much more about focusing on you and not what's happening 10 seconds behind you.
Do you ever get an irritating song in your head when you're out in the front like this?
No, you don't have time for that.
That's just me then.
No, that would be crazy.
Our leading group, the final lap here in Meulebeke is going to be a 1-2, it looks like, for the Paushausen Bingoal team. They're going on here. Michael Vantorenhout, what a race he has had today, and just looking for all the luck to finally go his way. The former world under-23 champion, Elias, a bit you can see battling to try and come back. He has gapped Tonarts, and as Helen said, that gap might seem 10 seconds, might not seem like a lot, but you can see here Michael Vantorenhout as he just keeps glancing back. Any opportunity to just have a look to see where Isabit is. It's all about keeping it safe, keeping it tidy, not letting any errors creep into your riding at all, taking these sections nicely, and again just affords himself just another little glance down just to see where his teammate is. And along this section as well, he'll take a bit of a boost just seeing just how far now Tonarts is behind.
Yeah, and you only need to win by a millimetre, don't you, really? So he's into the last 3-4 minutes of the race. He's just has to be smart, basically, and just keep doing everything that he's been doing up until this point, and then get his arms in the air. Yeah,
hands in the air. It's a beautiful moment, and you can see, and again, that just shows, again, Elias, if you weren't with us earlier on, Elias a bit here took a bit of a tumble, took a bit of a heavy fall on those barriers. Vantorenhout rides those barriers, and again, little fractions of a second here and there where you're riding compared to running for those that are new to cross.
Yeah, and you can see also that Elizabeth is actually tired at that point, because he's made the decision, the conscious decision, okay, I'm not going to get these 10 seconds back, but I'm not going to take risks either, and I'm going to run those because I know I'm tired. I know that I'm not perfect at them when I'm fresh, so I've got second, I've guaranteed it. I'm just going to take second.
They are, and he's not far away now. The celebrations will start very soon. Michael Vantorenhout onto here, and then he just will swing right onto the road and head round towards the finish. What a great day out for him. His teammate has been chasing him down, and we predicted a little bit earlier on that he could hang on and take this one. Is this the start of a big breakthrough season again for Michael Vantorenhout? As he said, he's been world under-23 champion, but there you have it. There is your winner, and deservedly so for Paushausen Bingoal. Michael Vantorenhout takes the victory, and the confetti flies. It is going to be a 1-2 on the podium. Eli Isabit took a tumble earlier on, fights his way back to second place. And behind them, the third spot on the podium, here he is, the Belgian champion, Tonarts. He tried to close that gap. He brought it back to 10 seconds. That was as close as they got. But Telenet Balois Lions, they take third today. Helen, what a win. Great performance.
Yeah, fantastic result there from Michael van Toornout, and it's good to see that he did take his opportunities as well. And Ellie was clearly one of the strongest riders in that race, and particularly coming back so far from that crash. But yeah, great performance.
Dan Suter, Lars van der Haar, and Quentin Hermans sprinting it out for that one. A little chat in the tent here. So Hermans, again, points mean prizes, don't they? You got to sprint it out for that one.
I think also it's a good opportunity to put some sprints in. It's a good opportunity to get a result you want. Maybe they had a little argument in the race and one of them wanted to make sure that he beat the other one. You know, you don't see everything that goes on in the races. So, but yeah, I mean, these guys have a lot of points and their world ranking is already really high, particularly a rider like Lars van der Haar. The amount of points you get in a World Cup is so weighted towards the front of the field. So, yeah, but also just a result counts, doesn't it? These places matter. If they didn't matter to you, you wouldn't be racing.
Not so. Ryan Camps, if you've seen Surte van der Haar, Hermans van Kessel, those that, and then that's next group coming in. Here's Turner sprinting it out for this one. So Ben Turner from Crayfin. Let's hear from Michael van Toornout.
Het was geen gemakkelijke wedstrijd om op kop te rijden, dus wel tevreden dat ik het nog gehaald heb.
Ja, je houdt altijd dat kloofje.
It was a really easy race for him to ride at the front.
Zwaar denk ik, vooral mentaal ook.
Ja, omdat je weet dat Fidea toch met 3-4 man achter u zit en dan weet je dat die man gaan proberen alles op alles zetten om terug vooraan te komen. Maar ik denk dat Eli en ook dan Soete wel goed werk geleverd hebben om die achtervolging een beetje te saboteren eigenlijk. Dus ja, toch wel tevreden. Ja.
Wat bepaalt dan dat je zelf gaat, dat je zelf de poging onderneemt?
Ja, ik voelde wel dat een cross met 10, 12 man samen is niet echt iets voor mij. En ik wist wel als je 1 keer goed door de zandbak rijdt, dan heb je wel direct een mooi gaatje. En ik had gehoopt dat dat de eerste keer dat ik dat probeerde wel direct ging lukken. Dus het was natuurlijk wel nog heel lang dan. Maar ik ben zeker tevreden dat ik het tot het einde heb kunnen houden.
Vorige week won je al in Frankrijk, maar nu is de kop er ook af in eigen land. Hè?
Ja, dat was wel een beetje gehoopt eigenlijk om aan de crossen te profiteren als Wout en Mathieu er niet bij zijn. En dat was de voorbije week nog niet gelukt. En ik had wel gehoopt om ook nog zelf eentje mee te pikken. En vandaag is dat wel goed gelukt dan.
Geniet ervan, dankjewel. En we gaan meteen door naar Eli Iserbyt, die hier al een klein beetje opgefrist is en al een truitje bij aangetrokken heeft.
There you have it. So Michael van Toornout takes the victory ahead of Eli Iserbyt and Toornout. Helen, breakthrough win, do you think, this season? I know it's difficult when we haven't got the riders, we say. We haven't got the likes of Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert. As we always say, you can only beat who turns up on the day.
Yeah, and he said in his interview there that it was actually a lot easier for him to ride on the front on his own than it was to ride in the group. And he also said that they asked him about winning in France and then winning in Belgium. And he said, yeah, well, the confidence of going out and getting a win in another country has meant that when I come to this race, I had the self-belief that I could stay at the front if I was on my own. So I think that riders like that, they're learning that getting beaten up by Mathieu and Wout every week doesn't actually help the progression of themselves. And so they go away and do things that actually give them the confidence and the performance and the results that they want in order to go back and put that into the racing. And yeah, Isabet had bad luck today, but equally, everybody has bad luck at some point in a race. So it's just taking advantage of the opportunities you have.
It was a very measured ride, wasn't it, as well? And I think it's a great demonstration when you're out there and you're on your own, and he was out there for a long time. And when we saw Toornout do that sort of trademark, I call it a bit of a burn to try and get across. He tries to close that gap really quickly, and it's almost to kind of startle the rider in front, and he got within 10 seconds. But again, a good sign for Van Toornout, the way he just took that little glance on those sections and just opened the pressure again and just took that gap back out, because we saw as soon as he started to do that and push back, Toornout, you could see, was right on the limit.
Yeah, and I think, again, that goes back to self-belief. And he said that he believed he could stay at the front. So that's what he did. And he believed in his skills. He believed in his strength. And in bike racing, probably 50% of it in a race day is mental. You know, if you turn up with the best legs, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the best performance, because if you're easy to crack, then you're not going to be able to do what you're capable of. And he really believed it. And yeah, good on him.
Phenomenal days racing. Well, thanks to all of you for all your chat over on Facebook and on YouTube. We'll do our best to try and I'm trying to mix and match between making sure I keep my eye on the racing and taking comments. Thanks for all of that. Remember, you can go onto the GCN website and via the web uploader. We want to hear from you. We want your video clips. Epic things you're doing, little fails if you don't mind sharing them, little slips and slides in the mud that we've seen, even in the snow we had videos sent. We want to hear from you. We'll put them together into a little epic montage that we want to try and finish each broadcast with. We are back tomorrow. We've got the Reykjavik Cross tomorrow from Pelt. Jeremy Powers is back on that. Helen Wyman, I know you enjoyed Helen's commentary today. Helen's going to be with us throughout the winter as well at various points. Spread the word. Let everyone know they can watch GCN Racing live cyclocross on YouTube and Facebook. Helen, good start to the season. Happy with that one?
Yeah, fantastic start to the season. There's definitely, watching that race, there's definitely things to talk to Anna about. So, yeah, I think that it's great to see the good riders that weren't racing at the beginning of the season to come back in and see where they slot in. And what's really interesting for me, particularly on the women's side, is that riders that did slot in, they were still around riders like Inge van der Heijden that was second in the first race of the season. So they're not massively better than anyone else. But yeah, there's lots to learn from this racing.
Sets us up nicely for the season. And again, don't forget, all of these live races will be available for you to watch on demand whenever you want. So if you're on the turbo and you want to watch some cyclocross, let everyone know they can go back and watch them. They are there for all eternity. We will say bye for now from Helen Wyman and me, Martin McDonald. Have a great day. Bye for now.